Okay. Carrie, want to do a roll call? I think Angel, are you online too?
She is not.
Okay.
I will text her.
Yeah, please. That would be great.
Jack McLaughlin, check them on.
Here.
Tom Susan,
Here.
David Kuhn,
Here.
Shell Hart,
President.
Fedak.
Over this way. That should be a stand for the pledge.
Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
The public turnout for here. Just one.
I know, well, we wait till the last, wait till the
Start talking.
the July meeting is what's the show.
This year projected in.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we supposed to be discussing the hurricane piece first, or no?
Just budget on this one.
Just budget on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it has to go before that, but. Okay. Carrie, I'm gonna lean on you until Angel joins.
I'm on.
Oh, you're on. All right, so you wanna get started?
Sure.
Because I think everyone just got the proposed budget, the new version.
Yeah, I made some changes with Carrie and Russ. Brenda, if you can put the one that I just sent you on the screen, please. Brenda, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't talking, but yes, I'm getting it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. So let's start at expenditures administration. All right. And if anybody has any questions, just stop me and we can talk about that particular line. So your board of supervisor pay left at 15,000. Your FICA tax automatically adjusts to that number. Arbitrage is 600. Dissemination agent is 2,000. It's going to go to 3,000 because we just did the $25,000 bond, or the 2025 bond. So that goes up $1,000. Professional engineering, I left it 24,000. I know that we overspent. However, I don't anticipate, there were some one-off things that Mark and Jan both were working on. Some of it was a master plan, some was with Mattamy, just some different elements. I don't foresee that
Doesn't the hourly rate?
I'm gonna say it's the rating.
coming in.
The rate.
Yeah, Mark's needs to be adjusted to what the board agreed on with the hourly rate in there. So we can bump Mark's up.
What did
But-
we, I'm trying to remember, was it 50% each year over 2 years?
50% and 25.
Okay.
But it's gotta go up.
That's assuming no change in hours, it needs to go up
Correct.
50%.
Is it 50% bump in rate or 50% of the increase?
50% bump in rate.
Great.
And rate.
So what number do you want to use, Angel? You using 36?
Yep.
36,000.
That's assuming the same number of hours, which we already overspent in the past couple of years.
36 works.
Did you just say?
Thank you, Brenda.
That says 24.
Yeah, bump it to 36.
She's doing loud.
Are you good with 36 or do you want that to be higher?
There are other things that we're gonna need to have him opine on.
We're getting more into.
Gary, you want to come up and get closer so you can see this thing?
Right there.
Did y'all start early?
No.
No, we
I will say.
Santa's watch. I would bump it up a little bit just because we've been getting more into assessments of major capital projects. If we're planning on actually doing any of these major capital projects, it's not just the front end of them assessing, it's them being there with the vendors and writing statements of work and helping with execution.
Let's hold off on that until we see what we're gonna do. Then we can come revisit if we need to.
So it could at least start at 36.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Are y'all good at 36?
Yeah, we do it at 36 for now.
All right. Legal is the same thing. I left it at 40. I know currently through March, we've spent 35. But again, I think Jan was working on some one-off things that I don't anticipate this fiscal year unless the board sees differently.
So can I ask the question, since she's not in the room, have we had a rate increase from our attorney in forever?
I don't know the last rate increase. Do you have that, Brenda? She did not send one over this year. No.
I think she's got an automatic.
I'm
I,
not asking for one, but
yeah, I can try to look.
It sounded like you were asking.
I would like to,
It's the man to my left.
I would like to get into the business,
We
at
try.
least for budgeting for rate increases, that we're not waiting until something happens and all of a sudden.
Well, can't we just negotiate cost of living indexes so we don't have this kind of?
Something, or engage with them on what's the rate schedule increase.
I think Jan's office did do some sort of annual, because last time Andrew.
They would have to do it. We wouldn't.
But then I think since then, they've just incorporated a 2 or 3%.
Typically, the vendors will come to us. They know the budget cycle every year. And if they need an increase, want an increase, requesting an increase, then they would present to the board like Mark did.
No, I get that, and due respect, and I love Mark doing it, but that waited 25 years and then we got it, and all of a sudden our bill went up 50% in 1 year.
I just went back the past few years, we've blown budget and legal every year.
I don't just,
50 one
and
year,
that's just based
47
on,
the other year.
well, that's just based on the hours. I'm not even basing it on the hours. I'm just talking rates.
It's the rate.
So the two separate conversations.
I think we need to go to 50.
I would agree.
51.
50,000.
Everybody good with 50? Okay, perfect.
On what? The legal fees.
It was
Yep.
40.
And there's a bit more and more of these one-offs.
Clarifications.
All right. Management is based off of the contract. Typically we do 3%. This board, we negotiated 2%. So that's what that is. Yep. Property appraiser. Went up $200. Special assessment, that number is driven by our, or is that the special assessment, Brenda? I can't see. Sorry, my glasses.
Yes, that's for special assessment. That's contract driven.
Yep. The trustee, again, that's per bond. So there is a new bond, so that number goes up. Website development, that's $2,000. Your contract is $1,553, and then you have a domain with GoDaddy. So that's what comes out of that line. Professional answering service, that's Sunshine, left that at $4,500. Auditing services, it's going to be $52 for your audit, your annual audit.
Angel, I'm sorry, go just back
Go
on
ahead.
the answering service. It's a smaller
Yep.
number, but if I recall right, over the past few years, we've always underrun that one.
I'm sorry, you said what?
Well, it's $2,800 through 3/31, so the run rate looks.
One time we.
Brenda, can you change that from budget to actuals, please?
Yes, I was just thinking of doing that.
Because didn't we change our answering service? I thought there was something we had with our phone lines where we had multiple answering services. I thought this was going away this year. Might hallucinating.
So
Obviously
we,
not.
One thing is going.
Obviously not, because it's here, but I thought there was something that was changing with our answering services or something was getting rid of.
Do the answer service after hours surrounded.
right,
All right. Never mind. We'll go back to my.
that's what that one is. We did, what you're talking about, Greg, is Infomark changed it from phone lines to Teams, where it would ring through our Teams.
Maybe that's what it was. Okay.
So that's your audit, that's at postage and freight. Again, left that at 700. That's for any mailing or anything that needs to go out, district related. Your insurance, what I did was break out your insurance in 3 lines. And if you scroll to the right, Brenda, insurance did go up, but I broke those lines out. Your total is 146,223. You've got general liability that's 30,879. Brenda, if you scroll down to the bottom of that category, nope.
You added.
Right
POL
there.
Property. Yeah.
POL, which is board insurance, is 8690, and your property went to 106,654.
Which drove the major increase of $40,000?
lawsuits.
No, which category? General liability?
Property and liability. Or trip and fall. So that's your, insurance went up to that.
Well, it went from 133 to 146, so that
Yeah,
was an
sorry,
increase of
I was-
13.
Yeah, I was looking at the one, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Workman's comp went to 1,000. Your printing office computer left that at 6,800. You can actually drop that down a little bit. It's not going to make a huge difference, but I mean, you can actually drop that down to about $4,000 if you'd like.
Sure.
Legal advertising went to 2,000. We typically have done 1,800, but they have gone up a little bit. Miscellaneous assessment cost, again, that is driven by, can you click on that, Brenda?
Yep. It's
So
driven
it's-
by your total assessments.
Yep. Office supplies, 4,200. Left that the same. Software maintenance, that's your My Celebration app. They did not increase at 17,000. Your annual district filing fees, $175. That stays the same. Your payroll services through ADP, which is to issue your payments for your board pay, is $114 annually. So that's what that is. We already talked about the 2 insurance. So that's your administration category.
Can you go back to the collection costs and miscellaneous assessment, just my first
Yep.
round? Why does it go from 90 to 141? Is it a proportional rate to the number
It's
of
2%. It's 2% of the total on-roll assessments.
Right.
Got it, that makes sense.
Yep. All right, so public safety, your LPR camera system, 24,800, that is annual. And they build us in, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, quick question on the My Celebration app. I realized the cost out the door for us is 17,000. I thought it was this coming fiscal year where CROA has to start paying because we had given them a credit.
Yes.
It was
3 years.
It was 3 years.
Yeah, so they're-
Yep, right here.
Okay,
So if
got
you
it.
look in the revenue, we're gonna be
Okay.
bringing in 8,500.
Okay.
So that's where that cost is.
And did
Or
we
the
ever-
revenue.
Did we ever talk to Canoa because they never signed up for anything and they're,
I bring it up to Mike Nunez and Lee every chance I get.
and the answer's been.
They're in that hole where they're not getting the service. And so technically the problem with GoGov is that if somebody has a problem with Canoa, Grand Manners has to address it, whether it's GoGov or not. And they're just not doing it. So there's just this black hole. So, now,
But they're not, I get that, but they're also not paying a fair share assessment if they're not getting service from their management company.
Right.
That's not our worry about an assessment on, that's for them to talk about.
I know that, but I don't think they want to move forward until they figure some of this stuff out. I'm saying people come in
Right.
with issues.
I don't
And
dispute
so,
that.
and they would be, and it'd be great for them to go ahead and track it.
So can we black out the area downtown until they decide to do that?
Or ignore it when it comes in.
It's really hard. Residents are saying, and so we can do that. But we need to provide guidance saying, hey, they're not part of the, the entity that we respond to.
I'm happy to talk to Mike about it. I mean, it's been a year and a half since.
I've spoken to Mike like 3 times in the last month about this, including Lee. I'm like, you guys need to sign up for this. Because that's a missing point.
If that's the case, then we need to find a way to turn it off. I know it's not a budget question, but it ties in the numbers, so.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we could just, as it comes in, that we identify that as a canola area and we just ignore it.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't ignore it.
We should respond.
We tell the caller, whoever it is, unfortunately, you need to call town hall. There's nothing we
We don't
do.
process that.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
And
If
then,
we try to put this on their monthly agenda as an action
I
item.
will happily engage that with Lauren for whatever the next Canoa meeting is.
All right.
Security cameras.
okay, security cameras, that's right. So we've got, that's, after the security cameras, we have. Sure.
But where are we at? Okay, the sheriff, I left it at 200, and I wrote notes off to the right. Osceola County, we have their cost, Lake and Kissimmee are gonna send theirs in. They told me they would have them mid-May. So I'm looking to have them by the 15th, so I can incorporate that and we can talk about that at the May meeting before we approve if that number needs to change, but that's why I left it at 200.
So far, without disclosing the numbers, are they anywhere close to where we think they might be in the maybe 100K-ish range?
I think the rate wise, it's a couple of dollars less. FHP was about $3 higher. And I'm waiting for all that in writing, but it looks to be $2 cheaper. They will come over. They did not know, the only thing they couldn't give me definitively was a one person allocation. All they could give me were the detail rates.
Oh, that was my question. So we're not getting any numbers back from anybody on just a full-time 40-hour-a-week person?
I did request it, but they couldn't give me any definitive answer over the phone. So they're looking
They gave
into
you-
that part.
They gave us a hard date to when we can do it or get the number.
Yeah, May 15th is when I'm gonna have the numbers. As far as when they could start anytime that we put it into play.
Can't wait.
FHP will not be able to give us any cost on an allocated person.
And have we gotten confirmation from Kissimmee or others, they actually legally can do it here?
Yes, they can
Okay.
do it here. That was a question Jack and I talked about. And so that was a specific question that was asked. If they were to write a ticket, would they be able to do that? And they said yes, because the concern was, you know, if it went to court, they would have to come back here and would that be viable? And the answer is yes.
All right, so we'll leave it at 200,000.
Okay.
Unless there's any discussion on that. I just don't think we're getting $200,000 worth now, so we'll even go higher.
Until we see what the numbers come back.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be willing to pay
Okay.
more if we knew we actually were gonna get what we wanted, but
Right.
We'll see what the quotes come back as.
Fiscal environment.
So it's not really a contract. It's drainage fees that we have to pay, SIFTOD and Harry, what was that number? I know I bumped it to 30, but it was just under $30,000,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just under 30.
Okay,
That's shared with enterprise. So we pay 80%, they pay 20.
that's right. So it's actually more than that, but our share is
Our share
just
is
under
that.
30,000.
Angel, how's that number derived? Or maybe Carrie, you know,
No.
is that given to us by SIFTOD and said, here's your bill?
It is. It's exactly how we did it.
I
Yep.
believe so. Brenda probably has
Yeah,
more
was gonna
history on it
back
than I
up
do.
our Calculation.
I can send that drainage agreement to y'all.
That would be good. Can you put it on the celebration share drive for them to access?
Yes, let me make a note.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like impact fees, like based on acres or how it's done.
I mean, we've, this is one I've always looked at and said, okay, the number's the number. Now I'm just looking at it saying, how we come to that number and what's to stop them from changing that number? We're budgeting it, but based on what?
Yeah.
Do we already have that number is that a number from them they've already given us for FY26 or when does that come in?
Just paid it 10 days ago.
But that's retroactive. That's what I'm saying. When do they give us the number for 2026?
I don't,
Later in the year.
yeah.
Bills due.
So I think to answer your question, Greg, it's always kind of been an estimate at the beginning of the year because they don't bill until later and then they give us a new cost towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Is that accurate, Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm fine with the number staying what it is, but if somebody from staff can maybe contact them and just find out, I imagine even though we get the bill later in the year, they're doing budgeting cycles and things where they're determining the number earlier. If we can figure out what that process is, just so we can hopefully align it to our budget cycle.
Not only the process, but what the calculation.
Or
method is.
metrics.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell it
Yeah.
means.
It's actually.
Calculation will be in the agreement, I'm
It
sure.
is,
It's in,
but
it's in the agreement, yes.
Yeah, the
I would just like
calculation.
to
will
understand how we're getting to the number. If they come up one day and say it's $50,000 and we're going,
You're gonna pay it. You're gonna pay it.
I understand that. I would
You're gonna
like
pay
to
it.
get
I know,
involved
but
in this process. I'm not saying we're not going to.
No, let's not. let's not, let's misunderstand who actually started the town.
Last year's
cap-
29,000, 22,000, 20,000. So.
Yeah,
we're in
the
we're in
calculation
ballpark.
is in the agreement, so we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of the agreement.
Okay.
Your aquatic control, that's your pond, a contract with Premier. Pest control is Clark. Clark did a 4% increase. That number should be 263, but their contract is due to go out to RFP. I don't know if the board, Clark, there hasn't been any issues with them at all. But I need to look at the agreement and see if an extension's been done, or you absolutely have to go out to bid, which is why I put it at 300 instead of the 263, to give a little bit of room in case we do have to go out to bid.
Well, number one, I don't remember when we did their contract that we had allocated a 4% increase in the contract. I don't remember putting that escalation in there.
The contract ends this year.
I
Yeah.
understand, but you said they just increased it 4% for this year.
No, not for this year. I asked
For the next fiscal year.
What would your increase?
Oh, for the next fiscal year.
Yes.
Yeah. This is for next fiscal year, what we're going over tonight.
I
I'm
think
tracking that.
But she bumped it to 300 because it's gotta go to RFP.
That's right.
I-
Because I don't know how those numbers will
It's a
come in.
voluntary thing.
I think there's an auto renewal clause in the contract that we probably need to discuss. with them.
Kinda.
Typically, they're 6-year contracts and we've exhausted all the extensions, so isn't it due to be awarded or renewed or whatever by October 1,
It's-
Gary? Isn't that what I wrote?
Yes.
Yeah, because we just did it 2 years ago.
Well, 22 is when the effective date of the.
Maybe it was a 4-year contract. I forget.
It depends on how, one was 6 years ago with small bumps, it's gonna be.
Well, also, everyone is gonna
Exactly.
agree, so I agree, just leave it at 300 and
I don't disagree.
let's just leave it there. There.
Is aerator maintenance not part of the agreement?
Yeah.
It is, it's part of the Premier contract, and that's the proportionate amount, which is 3,800.
It's a separate contract.
Oh, it's a separate.
Yeah.
Yep. R&M wetland, left that the same. That's just any little ancillary thing that may come up that has to be done with the wetland. We talked about, Brenda, can you move that to the right so I can see the note?
Mhm.
Russ,
We need that as a
myself
separate
and
line.
Carrie just talked about, to see what actually has been coded there, because maybe we can combine that line with something else.
Yeah, is there something special about the wetlands that we needed independently?
No, and $1,000 placeholder, I mean, anything we did with the wetland is gonna be more than $1,000, so.
Yeah.
This
Um,
could be your scooping budget.
It-
I'd vote
there's
for
not
that.
much you can do
Dave's
for
Scooper.
that.
$1,000, Dave.
There we
That's it.
go.
Scooping.
Well, there's
Yeah.
already a $3,000 hit there. Maybe that's where it went.
So,
Good
I'll look
stuff.
at that before our May meeting and make a definitive, note there, so you can decide what you want to do with that. Pond bank restoration, okay. So this is highlighted. What I did was took
That is-
Mark's spreadsheet and I did only the red areas, and put that number in there. And that's just the red, that's year 1. I know Greg had made mention maybe doing red and orange, or the places adjacent to those red areas for just scale of economy or things like that. So we can absolutely look at that. But that's where that number came from. And
That was just a midpoint between actually it's not, well, a little bit of a midpoint between low and high, just at the.
Yeah.
I thought you had 2.1 million and they divide by 3.
No, it's well, the low of the red is 340.
340 is the low number.
And then, so the middle of those things is around 700, but that's mid. There's a
That's
whole
right.
lot of unknowns. Jeez. I mean, that's,
yeah, that's not the low, the high. So that number could fluctuate a little bit, coming in, either a little bit lower or a little bit higher if that's the plan of the board to go with the red areas. But that's the number that I used. And
Why is it here and not from reserves?
you can absolutely do it from reserves. That's your call.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a recurring cost.
Well,
I don't believe that's where this.
I'm willing to take that number and also put that number into a reserve.
Well, Dave, let's look at what the costs are gonna be, and then we go back and say where we're gonna get the money from.
Right.
Take it out of reserves.
Well, I think, well, first question, since we're going through this systematically, I'm just saying this, I wouldn't put it here, regardless of what the number is.
I mean, expense.
It's an expense, where.
Yeah, but it's a
how we
one-time.
fund
Well,
is-
how
is
we,
the
well,
question.
so how we've done it in the past is if there was projects to be done, it'd be under project.
Let's go under projects.
And then we would insert it into the budget.
I don't think when they're passed, I don't treat this as a project, though. This is an expense.
You can call it whatever you want, right? Because we've moved away from like the little projects like benches to actual infrastructure,
All right.
right? So whatever you want to call it.
Well, think about it. All the other expenses are recurring expenses, and this is gonna be
One time.
one time.
No, it's not gonna be.
Well, it actually, no,
be 3
it wouldn't be
years.
one time because you have a whole spreadsheet.
For bond.
That's right. So the
it's a-
idea is,
It's a
or at
cap.
least the way you guys have worked in the past doesn't mean that's what has to happen this year, but what we've generally done is when you have a project like this that's going to be split over multiple years, that 700, obviously, if you assess for it, becomes baked into your budget moving forward to do year 2 of the project, year 3, and you do what you've budgeted for. Or you can take the cost of the entire thing, but the prices are going to change substantially from year to year. So if you took his whole spreadsheet and busted it out over a 3 or 4 year plan, you can do it that way as well. Or you can take it out of reserves. I mean, there's multiple options you can do, but that's where we put it for you to start the conversation.
Yes, Rick. So number one, from what Mark identified, looking at the color coding of the areas, orange and red are out of compliance. The initial draft only has red, but it was, what was it, anything over 12 inches?
18.
15, 18. And then orange was 18 to 24 and red was over 24,
18 to 30 and over 30.
over 30. There you go.
But orange was the line.
Orange is out of compliance as well. So anything up to and including yellow is still in compliance.
Technically, it's all out of compliance. The code is 4 to 1 and 2 to 1.
And but your 15 was based on,
Just past experience talking with the district, you've got steps down in Island Village that are 18 inches tall in the
Right.
water. The standard is gonna call toddler climb out, you know, what's the definition of toddler, a 3 to 4 year old? The average 3 to 4 year old is 36 inches, half their height, they can maybe climb out and crawl out. So it's a little subjective, but I had a pick a line somewhere.
well, and
I would suggest also real quick, if I may, look at some of the ponds now because they've dropped about 4 feet. Some of them I thought maybe were really bad, don't look quite that bad when you look back, so maybe it's not as bad as.
Well, it's
When you
similar
go
to
on with
roots
the
and
stick.
stuff, you know.
so, I mean,
The height difference is still gonna be there, it's just, I know what you're talking about, like you get the slough and then you get a little bit of a shelf that you can build off of.
I mean, we don't have
For
Jan
level.
here, but I would tend to
Doesn't-
say,
Change compliance.
yeah, from a liability perspective, I will guess that Jan is gonna say, hey, we've got it on the record from our engineer saying that orange and above is above any standard he can defend, and yellow and below is within a standard he can defend from an engineering perspective, at least can go to Jan. I don't see how we don't address the orange without or how we're not also addressing the
In 30 years, what liability has?
Well, that's my question is zero. Well, and that's not zero. It's always been there. It's always- it's just-
What the tangible dollar amount of exposure has been in 30 years.
Zero.
Well, but it's-
There's a question.
But it's been it's been a gradual erosion over 30
I'm
years.
sure
Yeah.
well aware.
Well, it took 30 years to get here, and I don't think we're gonna fix it in 1 year, so let's
Yeah,
slow it down.
I'm not saying what we're gonna do in 1 year or 5 years. I'm just saying, what is it we're saying we're going to do over some amount of time?
I think, yeah, what you're saying is the focus.
Yeah.
Where the
I
focus.
understand it's an important thing. Let's leave it $700,000 and just move on, and we come back and we find out where our budget is and decide, can we afford the $700,000 or can we afford more or less?
Let me ask to get a little bit more background, which is, and I'm sorry to spring this on you, Angel, but
That's okay.
for other CDDs of similar age, who else has ponds out of compliance? Who else is fixing them? And question B is,
in the history of CDDs, how many have been sued for non-compliance?
Okay. I can base you off of my personal experience. I currently manage one district that has $2.3 million worth of pond restoration that has to be done. It started about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and basically similar to what Mark did. He puts together a spreadsheet every year. He goes out and highlights the red, the green, the blue, whatever. And
Angel,
every year,
Can you clarify what $2.3 million is based upon our color grid for a moment?
yes, so they have a lot of ponds that basically aren't like Celebration. They're out in the open, so there's a lot of wind action. So it's a lot more erosion than what you're seeing with the ponds, their ponds being out in the open. The red areas, which are like the way that he did it, is the red areas are potential that could basically fall in. The banks are not stable enough and there's major drop-offs and those have to be fixed. So it's kind of like sidewalks, Dave, to answer your question. They are fixing them. Clearly, they cannot fix millions of dollars of ponds every year. It's not realistic. So as long as they have a plan in place to be able to do those, and nobody's ever come to them and said, oh my gosh, you have to do them all at once or anything like that. So what they do is they budget $100,000 each year to fix whatever they can fix within that year. And that's how they do it. They do use those funds to do the projects, but they do not do any more because they have maybe $500,000 in reserves. So it wasn't a project that they would even take out of reserves at all. So they budget 100,000 and that's what they use every year. And they've been doing that for the last 4 years.
And all I'm asking right now is, regardless of the numbers, 7,000 or 700,000 or $7 million, is the board in agreement as to what we are accepting is compliant versus non-compliant, and are we going to address things? How we end up funding that, separate conversation. We'll put that down the road. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out what are we accepting as acceptable and not acceptable. For me, it's very easy because we got an engineer's report telling us what he can defend.
Great, but my feeling is not acceptable. The problem is, over what period of time are we gonna fix this? Because I'm not gonna do it tomorrow or the next year or the next 2 years. At some point in time, we have to mitigate this, and whatever we can afford, we do. And that's what I want to see the rest of the budget for, is what we can afford.
But what I'm trying to get to right now is, we don't know what we can afford on this because we don't know a number. If we
We
all,
haven't got to the bottom of the budget, so I don't know what we can afford.
if we're all in agreement that orange is unacceptable to us and we're gonna fix. And I'm not saying we're gonna do it this year or not, but I don't know if it's a $700,000 number. What does that number go up to if we include the orange in there?
Well,
Jack, you're backing into a number saying I'm only gonna do a certain percentage.
No, I didn't say that at all.
so
I'm just saying-
the reality is there's red, orange and yellow. You always want to be in green in general, right? So you start with the red and you work your way through.
And what I'm asking is he has drawn a line and said he can defend yellow and below. If something, that's what I've heard him say in his report. All I'm asking for is, what's the number? If not, 700,000 is for red. What's the number if we include red and orange?
It's right here.
It is right there. It's a low and a high.
It's 2.5, it's 3.2 on the high, and it's 1.2, so it's 3.6 million.
Then you gotta bid for it. It's gonna be.
Shell, were you asking like a linear foot equation, what they were getting for their 2 million?
What I was just asking is, what was their exposure, where did they draw their lines, and how did they approach it? What I heard her say is they did the same study, 2.3 million was in the red and orange zone. They just said, well, hell with it, we're gonna put 100 grand towards it. That's a solution.
Right.
I don't know that it'd be my solution, but that's a solution. I'm just curious to what other comparable things
One more-
people were doing.
What is the reference for what is and out of compliance?
4-to-1 slope is the requirement.
What is this? Water management
Water
district?
district, yeah, for what, water ponds.
Okay, because it's an operating and maintenance requirement that's part of the ERP.
You know, but some erosion is expected. you know, you drive around town, now that now that you guys are a little exposed to this, you know, you may drive around, look at a pond and see things, especially now that the water levels are down. Drive by different ponds all the time and you see it. At what point do people start making repairs? I don't see a lot of repairs being made, but I'm sure it does happen. So yeah, I asked the district, what's the, what is the criteria? It's always been can a toddler climb out. What does that mean exactly? Yeah, then he said, well, what's the number to that? It's, well, the requirement is 4 to 1, 2 feet below the water, and then 2 to 1 down to the bottom.
What was your defining thing for the red versus the heavy orange?
Well, 18 inches was kind of my cutoff where, with the average height of half the average height of a toddler and the steps down in Island Village being 18 inches tall, that was kind of where I put that. And you kind of look at it as well, could a healthy toddler climb out? If you've got an 18-inch lip there, they might crawl on their belly a little bit, but be able to get out. Again, there's some subjectivity there. Between the orange and the red is, originally was measuring and then a few spots, stick the thing in, it's like, bang, it's deep. So those were just extremely deep holes, 30 inches, just a lot. Yeah, so that's kind of where I drew the line there. I had to put colors to it and just kind of came up with those numbers. There's really no standard I'm aware of. So.
Can you give the same distinction then between orange and yellow?
Well, 18 inches is the difference. So anything yellow is less than 18 inches, or between 9 and 18 inches of erosion or slough or fall. And in some ponds that erosion happens above the water, and in some ponds it's right below the water. So they're all different. 9 inches was the number we took for the green, because the new ponds in Island Village, they already have a little bit of a lip, but are we gonna go in there and fix that 3, 4, 5 inch lip at this point? You just be throwing money away, in my opinion. So 9 inches was kind of the numbers. All right, it's starting to be visible. It's starting to be something. It's maybe a tall step. So that's how I came up with the 9 to the 18. But I agree with Greg. I think if you're gonna move ahead with it, and maybe you do a certain amount every year, but the orange and red would be where you should focus. Because in a lot of cases, you've got red and there's usually orange next to it. And it doesn't make sense to go into a pond if you've got a small section of red.
So it makes sense.
You go in and then you leave orange on the side.
I don't disagree with
And
that.
it's gonna look funny. People, why don't you fix this
Yeah.
part, this part?
That makes sense.
Don't disagree with there. It took us 30 years to get in this position for some of these ponds. Okay, and probably took maybe 15 years to actually get us in a problem to begin with. You've given us some solutions on how to do this, and I want to know what can we expect, how long these solutions will last before we're doing these things again.
Well, we did get that,
3 solutions.
the solution from the one vendor. I think the long one was what, 15 years? 15
No, the
plus.
longest was 30, the middle one was 15, the short one was like 2 to 3.
So I think my question is, should we try and put ourselves on a 15-year cycle to do this? Maybe catch up a little bit real fast on the first 3 or 4 years and then put a 15-year cycle after that.
Probably, yeah.
Just
keep track of it.
and time. Because I do think, one thing I do like is that we've done the engineering studies for all these infrastructure pieces. And we do need to do them on a regular basis in that regard. Because the fact that we did them the first time now, for me, it's very important, but then it's also shocking that the last 29 years,
Well,
not one.
we've always had a peg out there that, hey, there's a problem. Nobody's quantified the problem. We've never just quantified the problem.
Yeah, but when you find out we have a problem, the roof's gone.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That didn't happen overnight, and then you gotta fork it over. So
And that was Jack, that was my other point. So when Mark had sent out the 3 different solutions, the matting or whatever it is. I mean, the first one was only good for 2 to 3 years and it was intended to naturally just.
I understand that, and that's not a
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah, and that's what I say. I mean, for me, what in the email exchange I had with them, solution 2, which was, I can't remember what they were called, but that was. It was disproportionately more cost effective than solution 3 per square foot. But it also on the time it was gonna last, the math on solution 2 just made a lot more sense. And you said solution 3 was the only one, that would only be like really, really steep areas, like the really bad red areas. So
Yeah.
most of it, I think, what I was getting. from
So
the
again, the
messages.
water hitting it.
And that was into, was, yeah,
Well, what it is you get the fluctuating water levels, any vegetation, especially grass, that's below the water in the summer dies, then the winter water level drops, and now you've got exposed dirt. A little bit of wave action, it just slowly eats away at it, and then the next summer the water comes up, kills whatever vegetation's there, then it drops. Golf course ponds, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those are a result of aquatic chemicals being sprayed to control the weeds along the edge, so they kill all that vegetation, and then that just exposes the dirt. On the golf course.
Thinking, Jack, if you're 15-year amortization here, and you look at the total cost over here, and you just peg a number randomly of 7.5 million, which how would I know if it's right?
No, well, the first three
$500
ends up
million
to
a year all day long.
Is it what?
If you take a look at the far right and you see the total cost, the swag is 3.2 to 8.7. This is no escalation over 15 years. So you're gonna easily hit the high number divided by 15, you're at 700,000 all day long anyways.
That's what I'm saying.
But the problem is those, I mean, is a potential life worth it when you've got so much exposure on that heavy red and orange? And do you need to hit it harder the first couple of years? Just
That's what I said. The first 3 years, we try and catch up and do a little bit more, then we put on a 15-year cycle.
But then we're talking about, I mean, in these
Well,
numbers.
even a 10-year cycle, whatever it takes to catch it up, but
Well, can we all agree that that number, if that's what we're saying, it's a 2 million, $2.5 million all day long? Looking at the analysis, it's
well,
anyways.
all right.
I'd put 500,000 to your point, the rec man. If we do 500,000, if you plan on that for 15 years, that'll get you through the yellow.
Well, it won't, because you're not taking in any escalation, so you 700.
Yeah, at present value, but we got
It's not present value, so it's at least 700 if you amortize it over 15 years.
Okay, well, let's
I guess we can move on.
move on with 700,000 for right now, so we find out what can we get done.
Okay,
But also his question too, Shell's point of how long do you let this sit out there knowing that, I mean, with the 700,000 answer per year over year, we know there are gonna be ponds out there for the next 14 years, assuming all the boards behind us actually execute our plan. That we're gonna have
I have no control of that,
I understand that.
you know, and
Unless we do it up front and front load it. And I'm gonna use the word you don't want to use, but that's where this is going.
I don't agree.
La, 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 la.
I don't.
Well, I know we don't agree with it, but to,
I 1,000% don't agree with it. I'm gonna vote for that.
but to Shell's point, we've been making a rush on sidewalks for the past couple of years because of liability. That's from somebody tripping and falling and breaking their ankle. What happens now when a kid falls in one of these ponds? Now it's not a trip and fall and somebody broke their ankle.
No, it's a little bit different conversation.
Oh, I understand the difference because I've been involved in situations like that at Disney. So I understand the difference, but there also has to be a basis in reality for the community, right? I mean, not everyone can go ahead and afford a huge increase, whether it's a bond or whatever, they can't. So you also have to understand that impact. If not, then that makes it a hard thing because yes, there could be, somebody can get hurt, or worse, but then also somebody can eat. So there's a balance in that. And half of the people we represent in this community live paycheck to paycheck in departments. So I'd like to see how this all works out.
Well, and that's what I'm asking for is a calculation of the numbers going into, if we were to feed it into a bond, what that looks like. Because now we know we've got a high end of an $8.7 million number, which you're right, doesn't include escalation. So you throw in 4 or 5% per year.
But we won't know that because we have all these other items to go to, right? We've got the slopes, we have sidewalks that, I mean, we still have to go through all those.
Right.
And then after that, we can determine, okay, then we're gonna go ahead and do. Right?
Well, we're predetermining a notion by putting a $700,000, and that was my point before. I'm not saying
Do you want to put 750? You can put 2 million. I won't agree to 2 million, but you can put any number you want in there. I'm just kind of wondering.
Well, the reality is the slow boat of 700,000 is the minimum option. 2.5 million all day if you're gonna address the severity issue easily. So just let's leave those numbers floating for a moment and keep going through the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're not real because then we can come back and change. They're not
Right.
fixed.
the
They're real numbers.
Well,
There's
you
the
know,
real numbers, but there's also
Well-
real dollars have them pay for it.
Of course.
And we can have this conversation now or later, but if you can help me out, Angel, in determining where on this spreadsheet shows our reserves. Because I see a couple of
Shows your
numbers.
what?
The reserves, how
Oh.
much do we have reserves?
Right here. Wait, no. No, go off of that, Brenda.
Yeah,
What you
looking
have
at-
currently today in reserves, Dave?
Yeah, what do we have available?
We have an operating
All right,
reserve.
hold on. I've got it.
2.7.
You have,
3.04. Where are you
you've
at?
got reserve, 2,740,878 in your reserve account.
Capital reserve.
No, that's your reserve account. And then your general fund obviously is different.
Is that on exhibit A? I'm just trying to figure out where you're.
Where's the number coming from?
In your financials, look in your financials, March financials.
Oh,
I
so
sent
not
them to-
here.
Okay. I can send them to everybody right now. I sent them to Michelle earlier. I apologize. I didn't send them to everybody.
Okay, so they're not in the spreadsheet.
I was asking.
No.
The same question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm seeing it.
They're not in your spreadsheet.
I
So
was
to answer
thinking
Dave's
it would be
questions-
on the 002
2.7.
tab, but that's a different number.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
Okay,
go back.
I do know
yeah.
where to find it in the agenda, yeah, the monthly,
Yep,
that's fine, all right.
I'm sending it to you now.
And that was 2 point something, all
Yep.
right, let's just
Just
park
so
that,
you know.
put that in the back of our head, we'll keep going, so that we can read this, all right. We'll put a pin in it, Tom.
Angel,
Okay.
a quick comment on repair and maintenance of wetland.
Yeah.
So we paid Cross Creek for littoral shelf maintenance,
Oh,
vegetation removal and new plantings.
okay. So that's what's coded there.
Yeah, it must have been
Okay.
outside the scope of the contract, so we paid them for that. That would
Yeah,
have been
it
a
was
cool
outside.
that we did.
What line item was that? The wetland?
Yeah, repair and maintenance of wetlands.
All right, well, makes sense.
Okay.
Sort of.
So if we're gonna move on, we can come back to these numbers. So your stormwater system, that's anything that needs to be done with the stormwater system, if it's grates and all that stuff. So I left that at 30,000. Russ thought that that was still a good number to leave. So when you move into field, professional field maintenance, again, typically it's 3% increase. With this board, it's negotiated at 2%. Your splash pad, it was 8,000. We had to get a new vendor. Their contract amount is $9,000. Your landscape contract, scroll to the right, Brenda, please. United. So United's contract with their increase would be 1128,782, but that did not include Island Village. Asked Brett what that Island Village number looks like. You can scroll back to the left, Brenda. And he added 200,000 in there. I don't know that that number is final. He's checking the construction plans and everything to see exactly what that number will be. So that number could come down from the 1.3.
Angel, are we getting a little bit of love coming back considering we took things off of his mowing plan? The Sienna apartments, the multiple churches, there were other things where we were mowing areas belonging to private property owners.
Yeah, I
That-
think there
that-
were 4 areas that we took
Yep.
off. And so, yes, they did calculate that early on when we did that. So we'll see what this number comes back. But between now and May, we'll have that definitive number for you, or the May meeting, which should be tomorrow because he was checking today when me, Carrie, and Russ talked to him.
I'm having,
The
I'm having.
mulch, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm struggling on, I mean, and I got it. He's still working out a number, but you're saying it's roughly 200,000 for phase 2 is the increase?
That's the number he told us on the phone. Of course, you can ask Carrie and Russ their reaction to that.
I'm having problems on an initial $1 million contract that one village out of now basically 9, let's call it, is now constituting a 20% increase.
Is that phase one?
No,
Phase?
that's just phase 2.
Two
Phase
A
one-
to B.
Phase 1, we already did 2 years ago.
That's what I
Modified
thought,
contract.
so-
Yep.
Is it generated by that long stretch of road that?
That's been in there for a while.
We haven't even started maintaining it.
And they got another pond.
Oh, you're
There's been
talking
a
about,
couple of good ponds back there.
All right, so for phase two,
He just threw a number.
that's fine to throw the number out, but that's not the number. We're gonna throw it back.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't, that's too high.
I think the concept was you can always go down, you can't go up, so give us like your
That is
highest
correct.
number possible, and then we can.
Yep.
work from there.
So we'll get that
Not
definitive
possible.
number.
So
We
Um,
get the same reaction.
Okay,
mulch, that is the increase with mulch that goes with the contract. It's just broken out. Contracts, trees and trimming. Increased it from 170,500 to 200,000. If you scroll to the right, and Carrie and Russ can explain the increase there, but basically crepe myrtles, annual trees, the arborist contract we need to get based off the new tree policy, and palm trees is all inclusive in that number.
Okay, because I think last year was kind of separated.
Yep.
Right? So now it's all in one.
Mm-hmm.
It was the quarterly conversation we had about the arbor.
that's,
It's got a sheet, just reference that.
so palm trees, annual trees and crepe myrtles we've already been doing. So those, even though we're consolidating, that's not an additional cost.
Pretty much all
Right.
the elm trees are gonna need to be thinned out. They're getting so big, and the oak trees are actually getting bigger than
Which oak trees?
in Island Village.
In Island
On the
Village.
boulevard. We didn't touch them last year.
Is Isle Village part of the, we didn't have any of that even phase 1, and when we did the 4 quadrants of town, it was phase 1 in that contract, in that quote.
We need to renegotiate the tree trimming contract.
Based on what?
Based on number one, I think it should be a set amount every year instead of, you got like $60,000 gap between like year 1 and year 2. To start with, so it's kind of hard for a budget. I think just take the overall for the 4 years, it's gonna be X amount divided by 4 and say, go do that.
They based it on the 4 quadrants, what they were actually gonna do, and some quadrants are bigger than others.
You know, it's also based on counting every tree in each quadrant. A lot of trees like magnolias, you don't trim,
You know, terms.
stuff like that, so it's
I'm guessing that may have been in their math too, because they looked at magnolias as an example and said, well, if I don't have to trim it, great, I'll pull it. That may have been in their calculation of numbers. So, do we think we need to recompete the contract? You don't think the overall number is fair? You just think renegotiate the payment terms?
paying terms, yeah.
Okay. Where we at on annuals?
Okay.
And that was first on
Here.
X amount of trees, to see, you know. Not necessarily
I like the straight line average, if you can get them, yeah, it's fine.
per tree.
Okay,
So
annuals.
annuals went from 16,380 to 20,000. That also added another rotation in there. Fuel, gas and oil went from 15 to 20,000. We will be going out to Island Village. That was the reason for that. And then obviously the cost of fuel lynch or lynch fuel, refilling the tank out there. Your electricity general, you're gonna see an uptick in that, so 75,000. Utility refuse removal. That's the dumpsters out back and the, you know, how many times, I think, Russ, we pay per the time they pick it up,
Pardon me?
the dumpsters out back.
What do we do? I didn't hear
Hey,
you.
when they pick up.
About a week after.
Per,
When we get the
meaning
bill.
per drop.
Right, but I'm saying if we have frequent pickups, that adds to the cost, is my point.
No, well, I mean, we pay per dumpster. Concrete's a flat fee, and the trash dumpster, they go by the weight.
Weight, exactly, so it fluctuates a
Heavier it
little
is, the
bit.
more it costs.
If you get.
So we've been
pickups
doing,
And fill it up, they're gonna charge you 3 times.
oh, yeah, yeah, for a month,
What I mean.
yeah.
Okay, utility water, this is what we talked about last year, that we're paying in Island Village. So we added that. It's actually gonna go up a little bit, so we put it to 100,000 versus the 85. Contract the aeration, 25,000, stayed the same. That's with Premier.
This is the little like turf aeration, right? Poking holes in the ground, that aeration?
No.
What's the, I think it's the aerators.
Underators.
Aerator.
Why do we have-
conduit.
Whoa, why do we have two aerator line items?
Yeah, I was just about to,
Well, there's fountain and aeration, and then there's aeration.
we had one up below the pond thing,
Yeah.
to the top.
Aerator maintenance,
Yeah.
we got aeration, what's the difference?
Let's see.
So the aeration is your,
114.
Now, I understand,
Aeration's a contract for the aerators that are in the ponds, and then there's an R and M. Like if one goes bad or something, we gotta repair it.
Isn't that part of the contract? Is it part of the contract?
No.
It's part of- I thought that's what they said. They were rebuilding. as
They're
part of the contract.
rebuilding, but if the thing goes
Yeah.
bad, like gets a surge in electric or something like that, they're not gonna come out and just replace it for free.
Yeah, one ones they looked at, the piston is broken and there are repairs that are beyond the scope of the work of the contract. I wanna say that was like $1,000 or so that we're getting ready to pay.
yes,
well,
and
this
the
says
repair and
contract
maintenance.
aeration.
Yeah,
Why does it say contract aeration?
if it's just spare parts, is that what line?
No,
110
meaning
is?
it's part of the
Yeah,
contract.
that is the aeration contract for the aquatic cleaner.
Relates.
Then what's line 80 something that we were doing before?
Yeah, what
81,
was 81?
That's aerator maintenance.
that's also contract.
Oh, there's two of them.
There's two. I mean, it's $3,800, but it's $3,800.
I like 3,800
Better than.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say. Like, you know, I can pay.
That
Like
needs-
negotiation tactics, however,
Oh, maybe
That
it's
one
the-
needs to be deleted. Line 81, Brenda, zero that out. And it's inclusive down below.
Once
Yep.
a quarter and go through the whole thing.
So now you're saying line 110 is both the aeration contract for them to go out and check things. And it also includes a plug for spare parts and replacement things to maintain the stuff.
No.
The repair and maintenance is down at one.
No. Yeah. 14.
Which is
Yep.
another.
So there's three aerated line items.
Well, now
There's
now
two.
there's two.
We got rid of some.
So we really spend $40,000 on aeration a year?
Well, it's kind of
Yep.
hard to tell because for the longest time, the aerators were broken sitting out there.
I
We actually-
understand, but
We actually just put it back in 2 years ago and we're up to a good number. So
Is it
I
really-
believe we've got a good run on.
Was this one of those where we were trying to buy more aerators and put a line item for that,
Seems
like
like
for a few years?
We
Wow.
never budgeted for them. The only time we did it was when we just decided we were gonna do it out of reserves for that one time about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
It was
kind of.
50K or something, yeah. We never budgeted for it.
All right, I just-
does that sound
This
right?
is-
40,000.
This is also repair and maintenance on anything that has to do with the splash pad down here. And also the new fountain that we're getting for Lake Reinhardt, any maintenance or anything will go to this as well.
I think there's a different line item for phone.
114.
it's
Nope,
the
it's right
114
there.
fountain and
Fountain.
aeration.
One maintenance contract for 3,000 or something is them checking the aerators quarterly.
Yeah.
Going out, cleaning the filters and all that.
All right, so then what's the difference between that, which was line 81?
Well, we just deleted that.
Deleted line 81.
But Russ is saying that we're paying that.
Is the maintenance contract 3,800 or is the maintenance contract 10,000?
Or is it
Or
25,000?
even 25,000.
Well, I don't think it's 25,000 for them to go out and check things about
It
6.
No.
says,
Or is it 15,000?
It says-
We need clarity on this.
well, because it says your actuals are only $1,900, so I don't know how they.
Brenda,
Can't
can
we
you
just
pull the
take
contract,
aeration out of
please?
that fountain thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, let me try.
Your actuals through 3/31 are $1,900, but your adopted budget's 25 grand,
yeah,
so.
that's,
You're not gonna
pay
get that.
Cross Creek for maintenance on the aerators. That's what is in that account right now.
All right, fast forward to the Premier contracts. What are they contracted for aerators?
Yeah, you can pull that up, and see what that cost is.
I think that's the 3,000. It's not gonna be, probably get rid of another one.
It's 25 grand.
Hmm.
Yeah. Says
And
25.
was that for Cross Creek?
That was Cross Creek's aerator maintenance contract. And they were getting paid out of that.
And they let it all break. Separate question.
They billed us twice.
Did we pay them twice?
Guessing we paid them twice because that's
Should
what's.
have only.
No, we didn't. We paid them once and they had to send us back the additional.
Oh, good.
I would say line 110, we could get rid of completely.
No, I combined a bunch of stuff, so hold on one second.
The
Like
premier,
having a separate, go
the,
ahead.
the premier agreement for aeration is $300 per month, so that's $3,600.
Okay,
think
so
we bumped
that's
it to
the line
38.
81, that's 81 up top.
Can we
So
change
what's-
81 to 3,600? Cause that's contracted?
I think it's 3,800. Maybe.
We had it at
It's
38.
38.
Yeah,
Line 81 is what, yeah, what you just said, and that's
Yeah.
the Premier Lakes contract. So if you go down to then 110, what is that?
Premier Lake.
Let me pull the GL, Brenda, I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, we were paying Cross Creek out of that other one. 25,000.
Do that anymore.
It's not.
R&M Fountain is what we pay the fountain, the red dot chocolate bathroom use.
All right, there's
Oh,
chocolate.
it used to be Killen's.
In the bathroom.
Yeah. We pay them for, because we have to have a bathroom up there.
Yeah, so that comes out of R&M Fountain. So that comes out of that 10,000. And then
Need to get rid of the word aeration on that line. Yeah. Angel.
On four-
All right,
114?
74.
So can we, I like the idea of 3 line items, one for maintenance of the aerator, one for the splash pad, one for our new fountain. Correct? 3 separate vendors, 3
Is it
separate line
really gonna be
items.
$15,000 for the fountain a year?
Well, that's a different topic. At least I know what the 3 line items are.
Those are your contracted line items, but
Yes.
this is a separate, at least 4th line item for
Well,
spare parts and pieces
well,
of
that's-
things.
They are, and
I don't think it's gonna be 15,000.
I hope
You
not.
want to keep all the pond ones
500.
together?
That's 500.
Move line 81 with the other field so that pond items are all together?
They can't follow it. So-
Well, it's a contract, I mean,
Well, right, but we have contracts in R&M in all these categories, but we have it for
Yeah.
ponds up here and then down in field. It's just an OCD organizing question.
If we have a separate contract, I would like to stay consistent and keep it as a single line.
Sure.
Yes.
Just rename it.
Which line am I renaming?
Start from the top at 80.
so
One.
line 110 needs to go away, right?
Yeah, no.
Was that
Let's
for
not,
purchase
okay,
of
let's not,
materials?
okay, let's not get rid of anything. Let's-
81, what is the purpose of the 38?
81 is premier.
Air raider maintenance contract.
That is the
38.
contract.
Okay, good,
Yes.
leave it.
Okay, so
So-
if they charge us for a new gizmo lot for $1,000, then does that go in that line
It's
item?
R&M.
That's
All
all
right,
right.
so it's a separate line
Yes,
item.
it's down here under,
3,800 is just them going out and saying, hey, it's broken.
right.
They should be together, just like we have everything else. We have contract and R&M for the same related items. Just my
Correct.
opinion.
So you're adding 81.5, which is aerator earning.
Yeah, their scope works very limited. Filter replacement, cleaning them out, general maintenance.
Great, how much do we need for that?
That's part of the 38.
Part of 3,800.
No, he's asking how much do we need for the spares?
Spare parts.
Well, again, in
That I'm
line,
not gonna know.
line 114, you have a line item for R&M fountain and aeration.
Yeah, but,
So is that indeed what that's for?
Yes
or no?
but we're trying to group all the pond stuff together.
I understand, but take it out of there.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely.
I'd say for aerators, we don't know because they haven't spent any time fixing things. We've just watched them break.
Read the right side of 114.
You found.
So it's only the new fountain,
No, I think we
No,
had.
it includes the new fountain.
Just saying.
including new fountain.
Yeah.
But again, 15,000, but then you've got the contract for aeration at 110.
Yeah,
At 25,000, I don't understand what that is. What is that?
But if
line?
you look at this contract amount, we've spent actual for 6 months is 1,900, which is half of this.
No, so I think what
I
we're
think
missing
this is a
here,
duplicate.
okay, so
It is.
I gotta tell you, I'm 1,000% confused. Because we're just throwing things, get rid of this line, this is really meant for this, that I kind of want a definitive, what are we doing here?
Okay,
81
what I
exists.
did
I
was,
know that, 81, gosh.
She's
Let-
saying,
let-
all
let-
right, tell us what we got.
For
Okay.
guys,
aeration, and if you want to add a splash pad and a new fountain, fixing to be installed.
But it looks
Okay.
like.
can I tell you what I did, please?
Yes.
I took 81 and it should have been zeroed out. And I put it down below with the, scroll down, Brenda. Line 1, where's it at? I lost it.
114?
14.
One
No,
No.
contract is 110.
Yes, right there, the contract pond aeration, and it should, I combined that with the R&M stuff. So if the other one should be deleted, that's what I did. You can do what you want, but that's how I had it.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're then including the 25,000, the additional spend for the fountain.
That is correct.
I still don't know how you're getting to 25,000,
Yeah.
but if it's 3,800 plus the fountain that's 5,000, where's the other 15 grand going?
For
Is
repair,
that just what it is? I don't know.
repair and maintenance between the fountain and the aerators.
We've already always had about 10,000 on the splash pad. I just
Correct.
signed yesterday,
Is it 114?
$3,600 for 15 horse pump.
You need to clean an upgrade bill, and you need to take aeration out of that R&M fountain or put splash pad or something.
114, I agree.
don't-
Combine it to 110.
Don't delete it yet. Let's find out what she's doing.
She just said what she's doing.
Yeah, but
You want to track the splash pad independently, separately of the pond aerators or fountain?
Well, we are tracking every individual contract outside of the R&M piece. We are tracking individual contract by line item. So if we're gonna do that, we need to stay consistent with that, so we know what the hell we're doing.
Yes.
Agreed.
And then separately, there should be a separate R&M line item that corresponds with each contract line item.
Correct.
Which may mean we end up with 6 line items, but at least there's 6 broken out.
Yeah, because
Yep.
this is,
This is how
yeah.
things get
You
misappropriated.
start consolidating them, and
That's how you get double.
that's
paid.
where we're at. Does that make sense, Brenda? Angel?
Yes, totally.
Okay. So then,
So this is correct to delete this. I'll just hide it for now. I'm gonna zero it out though. I'm gonna hide it for now because
Do you have a piece of paper that says 3,800 on a contract?
Yes.
Keep it.
Well,
You can match.
but
the
it's
paper.
already, it's already in, like Angel just said, in this line 110, it's already included as a contract in here. In the
Yeah,
25,000.
Stuff in there.
but there's multiple stuff in there. What we just said is each individual contract should have its own line item.
right.
And then each contract that has a corresponding R&M line should have its own separate R&M line.
that way there's no confusion.
It's gonna create more lines, but that way we can cross map aeration to aeration, fountain to fountain,
Right.
splash pad to splash pad.
Paper matches the line item.
Yes. Makes it
Okay.
easier.
Can do that.
Brenda, just put it back where it was and then we'll fix it when it's all said and done.
Yep.
And then, sorry, separately now that we've got that, what do we want to do as far as the actual numbers we're putting in there? So I'm.
Yeah, we even got to that.
Now,
Well,
we've got
The contract one should be easy.
the contract should be easy. Now the R&M piece. So we've got a brand new fountain. We have no idea what R&M is gonna be.
Change the title of 110.
Brenda, scroll up,
You get
please.
a price for the fountain,
It's 500.
500 a year.
Okay, got the 38.
The price of the fountain, the
Yep.
maintenance.
For maintenance,
Now,
yeah.
now.
Nothing to do
The
with
first year, I don't think you'll see much maintenance on it.
Okay.
clean
Okay.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming there's probably at least a 1-year warranty on it once it hits the water.
Okay, I would say even if we put in 0, I'd like to see a line item with $0 for this year.
Because it's gonna-
In the budget, yes.
Yeah, the contract is $500. You just sent it to me a couple days ago.
So contract line item is 500, R&M would be 0 for this
I
year?
would think R&M would be 0 for this year.
Okay.
That's not true because
Okay.
there's things that are not gonna be covered by the warranty, like cleaning it when the thing gets clogged and the nozzles get clogged. That's not gonna be
Is that not
covered.
part of the contract?
That's the contracted maintenance is in that $500, inspection and maintenance.
But
What about electric?
So what she's saying, it's covered under the contract.
Yes,
I just heard her say no.
it is.
Okay.
It's $250 or it's $125 a quarter or something to inspect, clean it.
Just go do regular cleaning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's
Well,
item
it
number
covers
one. Item
the
number.
nozzles and the screens, Carrie.
Yeah, it's all cleaning and maintenance.
All right, as long as it covers the screens and nozzles, because we
Yeah.
replace those about weekly out at Harbor Isles because of barnacles and snails and whatever.
Okay, that's thing number one. Thing number two is the pond aerators, where we've got the $3,800 contract. What's the R&M side?
You said
That's up
10 grand.
above.
Just for the aerators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just aerators.
Historically, was it?
We haven't had a historical because we've never fixed these damn things. We just let them break.
We think they
We
fixed
fix them more time than you can.
Well, we paid to fix them. We just haven't had them fixed.
We used to fix them ourselves.
or got out of that.
I want to try it again.
Give me a number. I can't see it being smaller than $10,000.
I can't see it being any bigger than that.
Okay.
10,000.
I mean, that's what, 2 aerators?
That's-
Gotta go bad?
I mean, just the cost of the aerators alone.
It's
It was 10,000 last year.
Let's see that.
Right
And then-
now, they're all operational. You got $1,000 expense on one of them.
Okay. And then line item number three is since we have a contract for the splash pad, what's the R&M on splash pad?
That should be $10,000.
Let's take it one line at a time. So what are you wanting
Yes.
to add here?
Well, I gotta have to spend
Okay, wait, hold on,
$100.
hold on.
Just
Wait, stop.
Go to
Go
sign
ahead.
an invoice for 30, I think it was $800 yesterday.
Angel, what was your question?
It's hard to hear. Everybody's talking at once and y'all
I
jumping
know,
all
I-
over the place.
That's the problem. So what was your question?
Which line are y'all talking about? Because y'all talked about 3 lines.
So R&M for the aerators, we just said 10,000.
Okay?
R&M for the new fountain is going to be 0 because it should all be covered under warranty or under the contract, and we'll figure out next year if we actually have stuff breaking. And we were just discussing R&M on the splash pad, what that number is.
It's like we
Okay,
had
so-
10,000 every year.
And that's what you've been spending, Russ?
We're really spending 10,000 on top of the contract? So much. I mean, I know we just sent somebody out there this year because we had some bricks off and we had to redo some lights and stuff, but
It
3,000 one year, 5,000 the other year,
Disney World?
that came,
12,000 one other year, so.
that was free. We didn't have to pay for that.
Never friggin' wanted out that one, you know. Somebody else.
If 10,000 is the number, it is, what it is. That's fine.
10,000's close enough.
Smokers
To my historical
Brenda, are
analysis. All
those
right.
carrying down?
I'm sorry,
You added those in the middle. Are they carrying all the way down?
they should, if it's the formulas right. Yep, they are.
Phew.
So I have, within contract pond aeration, do I have a separate one for fountain? A separate
Yes.
contract amount
There's a contract.
up
Carrie
here
said,
for 9.
$500 a year.
$500.
But here's we have to switch our terminology. Fountain now applies to the new fountain in the,
Yeah.
we splash pad.
in the splash pad, it's got a separate line item.
Right.
Called splash pad,
The fountain
Yep.
is specifically the new Lake Reinhardt fountain.
because.
There's no
previous
contract
budgets,
for the
we had
fountain, Brenda.
fountain, But
Okay,
that's the splash pad.
All right. Okay,
so
so
does this need to change? The 25,000 for line 110? Does that need to change? Or are we good with 25?
No, no.
Contract
Does that make
aeration
up 38?
3,800.
Way high, I mean,
3,800 is
aeration is
still listed
3,800.
above.
We
Brenda,
took that out though. We're moving it
scroll
down
up. Scroll up, please. Or down, whatever.
here. Right. I was
So
gonna
it's
make it 0. Right.
So are you leaving it there or do you want it down below?
Well, if,
I was gonna move it below with all the rest of them.
Yeah, I think
I would
That's a piece of paper.
consolidate them.
That's a paper contract.
I don't care where they put them as long as they're.
It's field.
Then
as
all
long
your,
as we
splash
have one
pads.
contract
yes,
and one R&M.
yes. They're down here.
Yeah, so Angel, you're probably correct on the repair and maintenance. There is no cost for any warranty parts. But there are costs for anything outside the warranty.
That's for the fountain. The new fountain.
Yeah, I'm reading the contract, the scope right now.
That
My
is
motorized
correct.
boat knocks out of chute and then
We torpedo it.
We want to put $1,000 in there just
I'll put
because
$1,000 in.
it's a brand new thing. I hate to not have it budgeted and all of a sudden the fountain's not
Right.
working.
Right. And then we the surprise.
Let's put $1,000.
For the new fountain,
Yes, ma'am, for
Yes.
R and M.
1,000?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
All right, so moving on to other landscape, we typically do 200,000. I bumped it to 225. Typically what we look at, we've talked about this before, the board set on the 200, but typically we look at 20% of your landscape contract is what we keep for other landscape, and what goes there is any, replacement of dead vegetation, any landscape enhancements that need to be done. So that's where that number came from, and happy to put whatever you'd like in there.
So three questions. One, are we getting better on warranties of plant warranties? When 2 or 3 years ago, we would have stuff planted and it would just be planted and we weren't checking it and that'd be.
No, they have replaced. In fact,
Okay.
we had,
Okay.
Oak Pond was really bad.
Okay, I want to make sure
They
we're having
replaced
like hey, 11 months after we planted something.
No, we're,
Okay.
we're staying awesome with that.
Number two, out of this number, then I think I just heard it's not only life cycle replacement for stuff that is outside of warranty, but it's also time where you're going out, like where you've done the end cap at Waterside, things like that. Where
It's
we're
just,
at
it's
smaller stuff.
smaller stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we're looking at. And we're pretty smart about it because if something dies in one area, we need to do soil testing.
Okay.
We just don't plant anything.
So we've been, I think, 2 years on that plan where we've basically given you carte blanche. Hey, here's a number.
Right.
Go find
We've
things.
done, I would tell you right now, we've done, and there's still work that we're
Right.
doing with grass. What we haven't done is in each village, when you go into the alleyways. There's a lot of missing landscaping here and there. It's a small,
areas of
yeah, the alleys are us.
No, the alleys are, I'm trying to think
And-
back in Artisan, we don't have any.
No, you
you're
don't.
one way out. I say one way, one single loaded, which means like behind Green Square where there's a CDD area.
Okay.
There's a few triangle areas.
And
About trees.
The alleyways are merging. Okay.
Yeah, and there's,
that village has one of those.
and a lot of them are like 3 or 4 bushes, so we haven't gone through a lot of those areas.
I'm just trying to figure out from you, I mean, we
would-
kind of went into this blind, we just said, take 100,000 and see what you can do. I'm trying to, is 100,000
Well,
small, is it big?
I'll tell you, the problem too is that the actual landscape material got expensive.
Mhm.
So I would say even though we increased the budget, we're probably doing the same amount each year. You see what I'm saying?
So it's $225,000 the number.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the number.
We're probably gonna do more than that this year, so.
We
It might not be
we
enough.
eke it out as much as possible, because again, it's not one of those things that everything has to get done all at once. If that area.
This isn't a liability thing. This is-
No, this is just, we're working out to make it pretty, but at the same time.
Yep.
It doesn't all have to be done at once.
And just so you know, that total projected where it hits 299, 457, that's if we keep spending the way that we're spending, and we're not. We know the budget of 200,000,
Right.
so I just want to make sure everybody understands that projected number. That's if we continue to spend the way we're going to today.
Tom hits October 2nd and just starts throwing projects down the ends.
Well, right around now is when we kind of
Yeah.
stop.
Cause it's something.
Yeah.
And then we also save some of that money for trees and stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause we don't know, so.
Well, so, all right, so that's another question. When you say trees, as far as tree replacement comes out of this?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the
No.
next line.
I thought we'd take some of that out when we had to replace
We
it,
thought we had a separate line. item.
Might have used a little bit for.
We
That's
do,
right.
line 122.
but not out of it. Okay, all right.
So next, oh,
Yeah, one of the things Russ and I have noticed is the deer are eating plants that they've never eaten before.
Right.
The loriope that we saw,
Right.
I saw some
Mexican
of the
petunias.
Mexican petunias
I've
are all
never seen
chewed off
that.
and they've
It's a lot of
never eaten.
purple flowers on them.
So we need a line item for 12 gauge.
Well, I don't know if that's drought related or their habitat's getting disrupted and they're coming out and feeding more.
30 out of 6.
What's that?
All right. Something in my throat.
Recording these meetings.
Something about a coyote deer.
It's not
All
a
right.
picture.
So
But again, I wouldn't go more than 225.
are you saying then is there something we can do to treat them like a deer repellent or something that we
No,
can?
it won't work.
It doesn't work.
No, and so the good news is that we're relying on United to go ahead and recommend knowing the areas. And so in some of these areas, when the deer ate all of them or pulled them out of the ground.
Right.
Yeah, we warranty that. And so they'll put something else that'll go on there. So, I mean, again, staff's on for those things. We don't.
We just need to point the deer towards the new plants.
Well,
Not stuff
if
that's
we do well, some of the stuff doesn't look great, but it'll grow. So we can,
Okay.
do the little song and dance there.
Next is irrigation. And we are having more irrigation breaks. So we went from 65 to 100, which would also scroll over to the right, Brenda. Includes, oh, I'm sorry. So Gary and Russ can tell you if there's a better number, but that's basically what Russ settled on, was bumping it from 65 to 100.
And does this include you already bought out all the control heads you could get, right? They don't make.
Oh, the timers were good on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is normal wear and tear, brakes, irrigation heads to get rid of.
From
I
60,000.
think it's a little bit on the high side.
I don't know.
Well, what number do you want, Russ? We just talked about this number. I mean.
Last year, Angel. Some of these numbers a little more. I think 80,000 would be good.
Okay,
Based on what? You had a conversation on 100. Why is 80 right?
Based on
exactly.
what we had for last year and the actual. and all that stuff.
Listen, I like 80, looking at the last 3 years of actually,
Yeah.
so. It's fine.
So are you leaving it at 80?
Yeah, we're leaving it at
Okay, great.
and you'll get 'em- you
Roads
get
and
'em later, Angel.
alleyways. Roads and alleyways, it was 18. Russ did say 25, but maybe I misunderstood.
No, that I did because we're having more repairs.
Okay,
Alleyways,
These potholes.
storm drains, your storm
Yeah.
pipes underneath the alleyways, all that. We just had another one the other day pop up, big old hole. Right there at Spring Park Loop.
And may or may not be driving over that every
I
day.
saw it. It's
Southfield
it's full, and I saw it today. It's
Southfield is
pretty big.
Southfield has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I know we do patch piece type of stuff on county roads, just small things if somebody calls up, or do we anymore? I know we used to be.
But we don't touch the cover.
Okay. I thought at one point we were doing.
We used to.
How much would that repair cost that I saw in Spring Park?
It's not fixed yet, but I'll probably be $1,000.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, looked at it, you can cold patch it, there's no way, you're gonna have to cut it out.
Yeah, then they're gonna have to
Yeah, it's pretty.
find out where all that dirt's going, which is inside the pipes. Another one, Arbor Circle, $5,000. So it just depends on
Okay.
severity of it, the depth of it, if you gotta drain the water out before you patch it and all that.
Yeah, that's. Needs to go.
All
All
right,
right.
sidewalks.
Brother
Sidewalk.
Angel, can you hear us?
barely.
Level louder.
Sidewalks, leaving it at 50,000. Now, that's gonna be contingent upon what you decide to do. If you decide to continue down the path you're going, which is the sidewalk project, then I would say 50,000 is good to leave in there. But if that other number is going to change, or you decide to go a different direction with sidewalks, we're gonna have to up this because your staff will be doing more than what they're currently doing now. So,
So-
that's gonna kind of
Angel-
be contingent which way you guys go.
So Angel, do we know how much we spent on sidewalks outside of the sidewalk project this year?
140 panels.
For what?
Panels.
140 panels.
Panels. I thought they said panels.
I thought we were going English.
Yeah, I thought so too. So, but in dollar amounts, what does that look like?
Yeah, so out of the 585, 586 that was budgeted, was 900 some odd panels. We did 140 panels outside of North Village using that money.
How much is that?
What's the cost per panel?
About 600 a panel.
About $85,000.
Alright, so what is this line item for then, right now?
That's for any
Today?
equipment and stuff that the guys need to go and grind sidewalks, or if they're doing one panel here, one panel there, couple panels, that's where that gets coded to.
Yeah, so anything that's less than 4 panels comes out of that line item.
Yep.
Anything that's like more than 4, we throw it on as part of the project.
Well, you barely touched it this first few months.
Because most of it's coming out of the capital money.
But should it come out of this one?
Well, let me ask a dumb question. This is the first year that we're finishing up that we've had two separate lines. We've had a capital line, and we've had the R&M.
Well, there was a reason for that.
Well, and what I'm asking is, do we need two separate lines, or do we just put it all in one
Yeah.
line and say whether we're paying?
I
project
think
line or paying
your
R&M?
R&M line makes sense.
Okay,
But you gotta code it if the rule is under, you know, you've done more into your definition that should have gone there, so you just gotta get it coded.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
right.
I like it separate because it's they're two different actions. They're just two different
One's
actions.
recurring ongoing, little break fix, but we're not coding it to the right account, because there's no way you only did $3,100.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's,
That's correct.
so is 50 enough or is 80 enough?
If you really code it correctly.
If you code it correctly.
He's in 50. Yeah, I think so. Should be enough.
Okay.
well, I'm sorry, maybe you meant, just so I understand the definition of the two separate line items. Should we now be counting the 140 panels that were done, that were taken out of the budget of the project, but we did outside of North Village? Are we saying that those 140 should all have been coded?
No. No, because most of the time we go maybe 4, 5, 6 panels before we'll go do something outside of the budget. If it's
But,
1 or 2.
Greg, to your point, Greg, it shorted the project.
The actuals are not correct on that. The 50, I think we're still good.
The more we talk, the more confused I am, so keep talking, maybe I'll make full sense.
Like Pondview, how many panels we did you count them? That was all, if you wanna call it CDD R&M.
Can you just put in the narrative what specifically the criterion is, because and then just let's agree on what it is and leave it there.
That I agree.
I'm not even worried about numbers, I'm just trying to understand methodology right now.
This is outside the project. This is supposed to be everything outside the project. It was
Correct.
50,000 that we said, okay,
The project is geographic.
right. But this was for the rest of celebration, when somebody says we have 1 or 2 panels that
Right.
need to get replaced, that's what's in that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that we now have a number after a first year that we pulled 140 out because there were 140 we needed to do.
Right.
So that gives me a baseline to say on a project, I'm gonna assume I've got 140 next year to do.
Right.
So I would then think 140 and 600 a panel is $85,000, so I would now take this number to $85,000.
That was my thinking, because I don't think it's gonna go, gonna go lower.
I think.
Kind of-
That is correct, Tom.
Because you completed one village, that village probably will not come up with any additional panels that have to be done during that year.
And most of the, well, almost all the panels we've done are in central.
Okay.
And then if we go to there next year, you've already knocked out panels that were in the inventory.
Angel, what do you got?
So what ends up happening is we budgeted X amount of dollars to do North Village. But being that we pulled off and did other panels, that project is going to be short when it comes to panel count of completing North Village. Does that make sense? Or whatever
Yes.
village we're doing right now.
Yeah, that makes
Those
sense.
extra panels really should have gone to this
Here.
sidewalk line, to
You shouldn't
Greg's.
have shorted it. What you should have done is coded it correctly to this particular line.
No, we did it purposely. We purposely took it out of the project number. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, and there was a discussion about criteria, Shell, so
okay.
someplace there's some notes that say if it's
Okay.
4 panels or more, let's do it on the project.
So if we purposely did it that way last year, and there was an intent to do that, and I was probably confused at that meeting too. Are we now changing our intent by you and I both saying there should be $85,000 here?
Or are we just gonna
Or do you
throw
wanna
one
bump
thing?
it up to like 60 or 65?
No.
I'm not worried about the number.
We're not worried
I'm
about
worried
the
about the method.
Oh,
Right. So, I mean, that's the question, Angel. Do we have this line item or not?
I believe you do because I think it keeps it cleaner, project versus staff, right?
Right.
That's the
Yeah, 'cause
whole
that's
point
what
of doing it.
That's also including grinding and, you know,
Okay.
grinding equipment. and all
Alright,
that
so
stuff.
we'll leave it.
But maybe bump it up to 60. I wouldn't go any higher than that, but.
Put it up to 60, Angel.
Yeah,
65.
65 is good.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Spend it like you have it.
How the cost of materials been?
65, Brenda.
Just because it's such a major part of the budget,
That's the
of concrete and all that. How are we doing cost of concrete?
Um,
About 5.5% of the budget has gone to materials. Irrigation is a big part of that.
You shouldn't. Can I tell you that there's no graft in unpoured concrete?
There's what?
No graft in unpoured concrete. Jeez.
Pressure washing.
pressure washing, we took it up from 10 to 25. Russ said we need, a couple of new pressure washers, which would come out of that line. And then any materials that need to be bought for pressure washing also comes out of that line.
Gonna sell that curve machine to make it work.
Well, that's,
Jesus.
Jesus could not make the meeting tonight. He will be here next week.
Other income.
So that's for the 5-foot sidewalks where you can't get the big, what we call ice cream truck on it. It only does 8-foot sidewalks. And we run them little, pressure washers like 7 hours, 5 days a week.
You guys need new equipment. Is that including some level of equipment?
Yeah, the pressure washers themselves,
Just-
the wands, the hydro scrubbers.
And you just, you don't capitalize anything under what, $2,500?
Usually it's like $5,000.
Okay, $5,000. Okay, got it.
All right. Tree removal and replacement.
We left that at 100.
So, no, geez, based on what, since we're over to 131.
Nothing. It was
Think
based
about-
on leaving it where it is and doing what's within the budget. I mean, we could absolutely jump that number up. Russ knows how many trees we need to remove and replace, but again, what's your comfort level? What do you want that number to be? Because you could put a lot higher than 100.
I'm gonna turn it the other way around.
What's your number?
What's your number? What do you need to replace? What's the number if we said replace everything tomorrow?
Russ,
106,000 was the elms and the spring park.
But what's the total? Not just that. Spring yard.
Yeah, but what do we know we have to replace and haven't done yet?
You're saying Russ has a list of all the trees to be done. Do you have a list?
Yes.
I'll have a list tomorrow, no, Thursday.
Or what you've done?
What's that?
What you've done?
Probably. Good 40 trees. Most of them are up there where you live, Jack,
Cost per tree was what?
Are any of those trees,
over 1,000.
are any of those trees results of, homeowners not watering?
There's 1 or 2 that's dying that we do, but I'm talking about the old nuttall and stuff. that-
Yes, yeah.
So
Not even like-
this is not hurricane related trees, is it?
Yes.
It is.
So I'm hearing more like 60,000.
Yeah, not 100.
That's not counting the trees that die from like, lightning and all that. You on the boulevard right now, we've got 2 Washingtonians again.
Oh, yeah, we do lose trees.
Did we replace all the big palms? Those have been a big cost, right?
We haven't replaced any palms ever.
A year or two ago, we,
I brought this up 2 years ago. I brought it up from the board meeting, prior boards and all that stuff. It was, I forget, at one time, we're missing over 100 trees,
just on the board.
just on the boulevard.
What?
Oh, wait.
Well, cause when you replace them, you gotta do it with a 25 or 30-foot tree, which is.
What?
No, we don't. Now, we talked about using 30.
You don't have to, you can do whatever.
All right, we're very. So,
But what are we picking number?
Not quite, Mary.
100,000.
This is the conversation.
well, I know, and everyone's talking,
Yeah.
which is veering away. So
Control, Chairman.
I'm trying. So it's 100,000. Do you want it to be more? I'm 25?
I'm just asking what's.
I mean, is it less?
I mean, if he
I'm
just told me
looking at the actuals projected. It's high.
if you keep spending the way it is, yeah, that's where you're gonna end up.
Well, are we gonna do another job like Spring Park Loop?
But you know, every storm is different. We might not get hit by a hurricane and we'll be under budget. We use the money for something else.
What, how many we replaced? 45 or something, this didn't even get hit by
I mean,
it. They just look like,
I would put 2 buckets. I would put buckets of trees which we would replace for aesthetic value, which would be the ones on the boulevard. I would put a bucket of trees which we replace for safety value, which would be pretty much everywhere else. If it's near a house and it can fall and hit a house,
Well,
We don't have
that's how I would prioritize the buckets when you're asking me what I would want to do. So then I would ask, what's in bucket
Similar
two?
analysis to this, I just,
Right.
I have no.
I don't know what that number is.
Here's what I heard, the known, which is $60,000, and the known unknown, which is about 50% of that, 30, so I'm thinking 90. There.
And we're already at 100, so there you go.
we're at 129, 331.
I wouldn't lessen it, wouldn't put less than that. You
No,
agree?
I would leave it at 100,000 at this point. And then the caveat is, for next hurricane, we want to get reimbursed at all for FEMA.
Conversation. and
We what?
also-
Why not get reimbursed at all for FEMA? For the
No,
removal.
no, that's a separate conversation. Yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
they're now trees, the removal is.
Yeah.
And so all the waste and stuff, that might come all on us.
So how many would we replace out of this past hurricane? Then there was the 40 in Spring Park Loop. Those weren't torn over by the hurricane, but we realized, hey, those needed to come out.
Or they were dead already.
Right. How many more on top of that actually got knocked over that we had to replace?
It could be like
quite a few, about another, probably about 75 trees.
Yeah, I would say around 75 to 78 trees.
Michelle, how many we found up?
No comment.
No,
Some of those were live show, so we'll do that.
no, Tom, I agree with you 100%. I'm concerned I don't know what the future of FEMA looks like for us getting reimbursed. I don't know how to put a number on that other than going out.
Because we would be responsible for all the removal, the waste, the digging out the stumps, I mean, all that stuff.
Brenda, as a swag, give me a high and low in your experience when we get a hurricane. What's the high and the low from what we put in for a total FEMA claim?
Oh, well, we had, was it 65,000 last hurricane for the East Lawn Pond? I don't even remember. We haven't gotten over 100,000. It just depends on what damage we have.
I mean, the East Lawn Pond was not even trees. That was.
That was
a
correct.
separate thing. That was
Yeah,
just
that
like,
was,
yeah.
yeah.
But they don't, obviously, you guys know this, they do not reimburse you to replace the tree, only to remove it.
Correct.
Certain
correct.
trees.
We know that.
Certain
That's what I'm
trees.
just trying to figure out.
It's not even
If
total.
the high and low of FEMA reimbursement went away, what would that look like?
This year we're looking at 13,000. What did we pay? 13 for debris removal?
Don't ask me.
No, I'm looking at Russ. He can't tell me I'm looking at
I
it.
thought it was a bit hard to, but pretty close.
Yeah,
It's just for cleaning the streets up.
Okay.
correct.
So the low is
FEMA won't even reimburse you if a tree blows over unless the root ball is 50% or more out of the ground and you're gonna take
I'm
pictures.
not even worried about that. I'm worried about what we do get reimbursed on. If that disappears,
Well, yeah.
what's our liability there? And I just turned
So get lucky,
13,000.
we'll get
from last
reimbursed for
event.
all of it.
I don't know that it's really substantial, but we might have different definitions of what that is.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that. That'll be part of the hurricane discussion, I guess. Fire equipment.
I deleted that because it's, down below in building operating cost.
Okay.
So I deleted that line, or going to delete that line. Painting went from 10,000 to 20,000.
That's not the green.
Is this the green paint project?
All
Automotive
the
paint,
green stuff.
$120 a gallon.
That's expensive.
It is.
Is that enough
Um,
to cover the deficit?
Mi-
Well, that-
miscellaneous contingency, I left at 15,000, and that's
Back on
basically,
the paint, is that enough? Is that-
Hold on. So going back to the painting,
Is that enough to finish the scope that we had started and not finished?
It's gonna be.
no,
Finished by September 30th.
well, I was hoping October 1st.
Well, this is next.
This is next year. We're talking
Next September 30th.
Yeah.
What's the number? to
So we're
finish?
going another year.
So we're saying we're not gonna get this done in 26. This will stretch into 27 if we stay with $20,000. Is that what I just heard?
No.
No,
No.
they'll stretch
It-
6.
Yes, we'll stretch to
Well,
26.
is that enough to cover?
That's what he just asked us, is it enough to finish on 26?
Positively, I don't know. That's what we think.
Cover it. Your assumption is to
Cover it.
cover it all to finish the scope. Kind of, sort of, maybe.
Yes.
I do see guys painting out there, so. Why they are numbers. Oh, that, okay. But is this just material?
There's just
Just
materials, yes.
Cause the labor shortage.
What happened to the-
Cause you didn't hire a sub, correct?
Not
Go ahead, Angel.
yet.
No, I'm asking Brenda what the budget is. It's not on the screen anymore.
Is it line 122? Is that what we're talking?
I just lost them.
Yes.
122.
Yeah, I think
Sandwich.
something happened with my internet connection. I couldn't hear anybody, so it reset everything. Let me share again. Hold on.
So in that painting, if you hire subs, are you contemplating that in subs?
I can answer that.
Yeah, somebody.
No.
If it
So we
works.
did get it priced and it came in at $787,000.
Sure.
Wait a minute.
Labor.
Yes, just labor.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
No.
Just
Just
labor.
for the-
Yeah, we're paying for the paint. Yep,
What are we paying?
and I
Wait a
got
minute.
3 bids.
We gave them.
That's
Wait a minute.
Clearly just two.
That's not them, man.
Hold time.
It's just a.
Time out. So. The painting project. We approved 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And we were told this was gonna cost 20,000 a year, a total of 40,000. Is now
Mhm.
what?
I think we were.
No, we're going by your recommendation, so that's what I'm going.
Street
by.
lights. Which
The-
we got all of them painted, the big tall.
No, the budget wasn't just for the streetlights. Everything that keeps getting brought up. It was for everything, the poles, anything that's green. That was the estimate, 20,000, take 3 years to do. But now I'm hearing 700 some thousand dollars.
If you get sub labor.
Maybe you get sub labor.
That's
But if,
How did they go from 60 to $700,000 by going to the subcontractor? I'm speaking the wrong language.
I'm in the wrong business.
Angel, what? I don't even understand that number.
I don't know, and Carrie can't explain it either. We all looked at it and we're like, are you joking?
Okay,
And that's
that's
pure
That's
labor.
another discussion.
that's a throwaway number.
yes, so
Yeah.
the simple question is to finish the scope that you all started, what's that number for next year with internal labor and supplies? It's not,
Internal labor and supplies, I have no idea. That's paint right there.
well.
Yeah,
But
you
again,
already
you
paid-
already have the labor. Labor's
Yeah,
paid
you already
for.
pay the
Paid for.
labor.
So I'm just, what's that number of supplies?
Paint.
That's paint.
I know what it is, but is that enough of a number to finish?
Oh, I see.
Oh, I see.
Just finish the,
Is it-
isn't the project supposed to?
I don't know if it's enough.
Shell doesn't want to go into year 4.
Well,
That's all.
It's supposed to be
I'm
done by
saying.
October 1st.
I-
This is coming.
Okay, so is that the number? Is it not the?
That enough?
I don't know.
What's the variable left to determine? How many polls do we have left to do?
It's not the pole, well, it's the street signs, the poles. I gave Angel a quantity the other day because that's where she got the price from the
Don't
other contractor.
We'll take out all the signs.
We had full numbers, you know, 1,000 street signs, you know, and 500 of these and 400.
That's
We had it all.
So we've got an audit of what's left to paint
Correct.
and we have a price. Okay.
But it's not know what needed painted. I don't know if we're keeping actual numbers of what's getting painted. I think we're doing about 50.
Okay,
today.
so this is something we're gonna take on the side. I'm not gonna settle it tonight.
Well, sometime, what, my request would be by the May meeting.
No, absolutely.
Something happens in the background to,
Yeah,
figure out the-
Angel, you and I can work on that.
Yep.
Okay, miscellaneous
So,
contingency.
Building operating cost, I left it 15,000. The janitorial's in that line item, the fire equipment annual is in there. So anything that, the pest control for the buildings in there, just things like that. So going down, capital outlay, sorry.
I'm
We
sorry,
put
hold on 1 second. Angel, in the building operating costs, I'm just trying to remember the swag cost for. What we're gonna do, carpet? Do we ended up holding off on? Would that be considered a capital?
No, it's not.
That's on the agenda for this meeting, this month's. meeting.
Yeah, it should
Flooring,
come
we're not doing
should come out of that line item, to your point.
I'm just trying to figure out if it's getting done this fiscal year, we don't have to worry about it in the
It is,
26th budget.
yes.
Okay, very well.
Capital outlay, new ATV, put 50,000 in there, scroll to the right, Russ basically said, him and Carrie did a thing on the mules, they need a new mule, ATV obviously Island Village is now in there, and replace one of the oldest ones. So that's where that number came from.
So this is the discussion we have. Do we want to own it or do we want?
We don't need to have that discussion now.
I know that, but this is,
A little bit.
We kind of do.
Yeah.
We're punching for it.
The oldest one that needs to be replaced is owned by Infomark.
Oh, it is. Interesting.
So what's the last? Let's kick that dead horse and bring it back on its feet.
Going by hours, 6,700 hours is the biggest, the highest one, and that's an Infomark vehicle.
but there's another mule that needs to get replaced. And that's a CCD vehicle.
But in the Infomark contract, you just replace your own vehicle.
Right.
It's not our, so that wouldn't be in our.
Well, no, the verbiage in the verbiage in the contract isn't there. That was what sparked
That's-
the whole conversation was
We kick
that.
this can down to the road and obviously we're done.
Here we are. We're at the end of the road.
Here.
Yeah.
We're at the end of the road.
So what would the cost be to increase the budget to include 2 new ones from Infomark for us buying it, CapEx in it and go down that path?
That cost is.
Well, it's more expensive because we get a break as a CDD. We don't have to pay the tax.
You don't pay the taxes.
Right.
Yep.
But,
And
But
we
we-
own it
we-
regardless of who's managing. So.
but there was a question about liability. And so the liability is on the CCDD.
We asked all the questions, we just never got to any answers. Well, to this,
No, we got that answer. From an insurance standpoint.
The liability, yes. Well, but there was even debate as to whether or not we have liability because we had some immunity.
We have the liability now. And they own the vehicle, correct?
How do
We own
not-
all the trucks and 2 mules, and the district owns the rest of the mules. But Infomark owns all the trucks and 2 of the mules currently.
It's gonna be operating on our property, moving, no matter who owns it.
That's what anyways, I mean, regardless. of
I don't
who-
see why we don't own it. Get tax.
I don't disagree.
Well, but 98% of the vehicles we don't own.
You don't own any of the work
Well,
vehicles.
except for the mules. I'm just saying,
That's it.
for me, I'm just like one way or the other.
If we want to stay exactly where we're at now, which is kind of a mishmash, at least codifying in the contract was all I was asking for initially, because
Right.
we don't even have it addressed in the contract.
Right.
If we want to change it, that's something else.
Okay. So I guess we're gonna leave 50,000 in.
So
If you're gonna do that, then I think you replace the mule that you own, you know, replace the Infomark mule. I think that's on us.
Right.
No, right.
Yeah,
Right.
so you do have one that is
One is-
hour wise, it should probably get traded out.
That's all it-
Depreciated out.
Probably could use one of mine.
So can we then,
Next year.
okay, if that's what we're agreeing to do as far as the methodology, can we, Angel, can you work with Tom and Jan? Can we get that codified in the contract? There will be
Yeah.
X number of trucks and Y number of mules from Infomark. The rest will be from the district.
So you just want to list who owns what that's being utilized by the district.
I just want something in the contract covering that, hey, Infomark will, based on the price, you're gonna supply X trucks and Y mules, and then the balance would be the district.
And those 2 mules Infomark owns are the porter mules. Picks up all the trash and stuff.
The small.
We're
All right.
agreeing not to change anything, Dave. Everybody's gonna continue to own what they own. I just want it written in the contract, because right now the contract doesn't say anything about it.
That said, that we may need to buy a new one, they do their own, and this would drop to 25,000. Is what I'm hearing you say. Assuming you're 25 grand ahead.
If you're replacing based on hours in need, that is correct.
And then you pick up yours, we pick up ours and call it a day.
Correct.
And just codify it in the contract.
Yeah, I have to see what that looks like though, because I mean, I can't imagine that there's no cost to that.
No, because there would be a cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would be a cost. We would get charged from Infomark for something.
Infomark is a depreciation schedule. That's their equipment. I'm not,
Well,
every
that-
time they change it.
That was what spawned the whole conversation.
Right,
Like the trucks now, are they replacing it?
They're not.
There.
No,
Right.
I
So
thought
that- we're gonna get that clarification by the May meeting.
Okay, but there shouldn't be a costing.
getting, the alternative is.
No, just the wording on how this is supposed to work, as Greg has brought up. Just to get written clarification, because it was not clear.
I think Angel's trying to chirp in and say, it may not be that we don't get a cost increase if Infomark has to get a mule.
Absolutely, yeah, right, so
Right.
why aren't we just, if we need new equipment, we buy it. Why is it more complicated than that?
because
It's
they
not
own,
just a board decision, that's all.
because they own certain stuff now.
But
If, if we're now shifting it to us,
I don't care who owns it right now. If it breaks, we buy a new one. I don't care who owns it.
okay, but if that's gonna happen, now what happens when 4 of their trucks take a ship tomorrow?
We buy 4 trucks.
And why is their contract cost not going down? Because they had accommodated in their $1 million a year contract.
Trucks and mules are two different things.
Well, I'm not worried about that. It's that they accommodated in their contract cost for X number of trucks and Y number of mules. It was never codified in the contract what that number was, how many. But they had assumed, hey, we're gonna keep exactly what we've already got, which was what, 7 trucks and 2 mules or.
Oh, so yeah, what we need is whenever we buy a new mule, they need to drop the price X.
No,
Because they're not.
Well,
if there already are mules, no.
No, correct.
but he's saying as Infomark mules die out or Infomark trucks die out, what he's suggesting is we buy them all. Which means now we need a schedule saying for every truck that dies out, you're gonna drop the contract X number of dollars for every mule that drop. That's what I'm saying.
No,
Yeah.
I'm,
I'm not gonna agree to start buying mules on the district's dime if the price was based on them having trucks.
so that's where we
That
need,
would be-
that's where we need clarification. And that's where I'm gonna work with Angel and Jan on. As we already said.
Got it.
But it's not clarification. I think it's us giving guidance as to which way do we wanna go.
Well, they're gonna tell us what that impact is, the contract for.
But again,
Their equipment.
So are we asking this? Are we asking if we buy 2 mules? If they buy 2 mules? And a third option, if a truck goes down, we start buying all the vehicles. Is that what we're asking?
What I'm specifically asking is their equipment, their budget, their material dies. I don't get a cost increase to replace that material. I don't care. Your lawnmower broke. That's part of your contract. That's your CapEx. If you have old equipment, that's your problem.
It's not part of our contract, Shell.
Well,
it's not
that's
part
what
of
we
the
gotta
contract.
codify it, and that's the problem.
And if we're gonna codify that they're gonna have trucks and mules, there has to be a
There's gonna be
specific number because they have a certain number of trucks and we got to split on mules.
Right.
So I'm saying the simplest thing I think we can do is look at a snapshot right now and say, how many trucks, how many mules? The simplest thing is codifying that in the contract and saying any overage, we're gonna buy the overage. What Dave is saying is anytime through attrition, anytime anything dies, we're always gonna buy it and we're just gonna continue to decrease that cost out of Infomark. And we're gonna own eventually everything when everything dies out. Am I correct?
Yes, that eventually gets simplified.
What I'm saying is we as a board need to figure out which one of those 2 options, or if somebody's got a third option, we need to figure out which way to go to give you guidance so you can go negotiate it.
Yes, the lone man in the audience, please.
No, Greg is right. You're saying everything I want to say, but the third option is you renegotiate the contract periodically or an RFP. So you will never go to the attrition level where you own everything because you'll renegotiate the contract and say, you now have 4 vehicles, you used to have 7, so we want you to bring 7. So
Well, for me, it has to do with the use of the vehicles, right? And so Angel, educate me on this. So somebody, one of our technicians actually is riding the truck, right?
Yep.
Does he leave it here? Does he bring it home? How does that work? Because I know they don't just stay here, they go in, in different sites as well, right?
Yeah, so the majority of the trucks that you see there, and I mean, we can give you definitive numbers, but they stay at Celebration. They are used specifically for Celebration. All of them stay there outside of a couple of managers, Russ being one of them, Carrie being one of them. They take theirs home, bring them back. There are, I think, right now, 2 trucks, Carrie, or even 1 that goes to other districts on the other side of field.
Yeah, there's just one right now.
1. So outside of that 1 truck, the rest are solely used for Celebration. And just so you know, the way that we replace trucks is once they hit a certain mileage, we depreciate them, CapEx them out, and get a new vehicle. And I want to say, Carrie, and sometimes Russ will push it and say, oh, this truck's it's still perfectly fine, even though it has 200,000 miles on it. But that's kind of the standard and how we rotate them out and get new vehicles. And we just added a new 350 to the fleet.
My opinion in a perfect world, and I realize there's no clean way to get there, I would love for Infomark to own it all. I don't want to be in the fleet vehicle maintenance business. I realize we're gonna save money if we do it. But I am willing to pay a certain premium, which is a couple points, to say, hey, guys, truck dies, truck doesn't die, you need another one for Island Village, we need another, I don't care. I have given you a fixed price scope of work to say you need to accomplish these tasks, whatever tools you need to do that, to Shell's point, that's on you guys. I don't want to have to deal with it.
I argue the opposite, which is the fact that at the scale that we're at, we want to own and maintain and control it all, regardless of what management company there is too. Because if Infomark disappears tomorrow, it's gonna be a shit crap show. Figuring out who truck goes where.
It'll be a shit show, but it's not gonna be because of trucks, it'll be
Because
because
we know
everything.
if we own it, that's not part of the equation.
Yeah, but we have.
Plus,
to-
we get the cost savings.
Yeah, we're going to go around in circles because the argument before is, do we want to accept the liability associated with that?
I think liability is a red herring.
Right.
Now,
But
that's what we had before.
To Greg's point, guys, to Greg's point, that's why I'm telling you, the stuff's not in there. Trucks are not in your contract, but because it's a scope-based contract. It's whatever we need to provide that specific scope. And that's what we're held to. So I will have the conversation between Tom, myself, and our internal and see what that looks like to switch it and, codify and make moves and all that and give you different options to choose from.
I think we can still leave.
For now, we can leave it in here.
Just leave the
This will be
number in
something
there.
we have to talk about in the May meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So going on bid road and street lights. So the street lights are at 195, put them to 210. Electric's going up, all of that. So that's where that name came from. That's just your lighting. And then the road cleaning is 108. That's your street sweeping. It's X amount per street sweep. R&M street lights, that's anything that has to do with replacing parts, poles, anything that happens for street lights. I will tell you, we've spent a lot, but I think Russ was talking about, we're about to get reimbursed probably what, 40,000, Russ?
Well, actually, it's not quite true.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, I was thinking about some of the poles on Enterprise. There's 2 poles we're gonna get. So that'll be 12,000 and the other one I think is 8,000. So we should get $20,000 back.
Totally crushed.
It's one by Jack's house and then one in Island Village.
Jack crushed into his pole.
Okay, so scratch the number, but we will get some reimbursement
Yeah.
for some that's been spent there. But we left it at 120,000. R&M sign radar, that's at 15. We bumped it to 20. Russ is actually about to buy another sign. Is that accurate, Russ?
Yes,
Okay.
for Jack.
So this is, the R and M line is not just repairing and maintaining. This is to include buying a new one.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, they refurbish it, so they replace the cones. So we do that.
Okay. So scroll down, Brenda. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. So you went too far. Okay. So here's the next 3 things that are really pushing your increase currently right now without any changes. Sidewalk project. Last year we budgeted 584, 375. This year 1.1 that, and if you scroll to the right, I put the note in there that would include Central Village and the remaining North Village that we were pulled off of to go do other things. So scroll back to the left. That's where that number came from. And that would be, again, that's an addition of roughly, I don't know, 600,000 above, because your 584, 375 is already baked into your budget. That was assessed last year. Your annual reserve contribution, we made no contribution last year at all because we did the sidewalk project. So I put 500,000 to go to your reserves. And then your pond water nutrient abatement, they came back at 138,000 for 10 ponds. And the biggest cost was Lake Reinhardt. And then your boardwalk restoration, I put that line in there, but I left it blank because we're waiting on the boardwalk report to come back to see if anything needs to be done. And if so, what does that look like? So before you get into conversations, if you go to the assessment summary per unit, Brenda, you're looking at a 57.1% increase with everything that is in there right now. So go back to the 001 tab. And those big pushers are these 3 items, and scroll up, Brenda. Scroll up, and the pond restoration number. If you take those 4 out, you're down to about a 15% increase. If you take all of those major things out. Go back. Oh, no, you're out. Oh, because we changed some numbers and lowered some. So yeah, you're actually down to a negative 0.5% increase, which, go back, Brenda. Are we sure? Because we made increases. Let's see, go up. Okay. We took that out. Okay. Scroll all the way up to revenues, Brenda. Okay, so 5.672 to 5.647. Scroll down. So we lowered some other stuff. So I guess it was basically a wash. So taking those major things out, you're down to a 0.5 negative, which obviously we don't want that. But so those are your major drivers of your increase. So now you can start your conversations on where you'd like to go.
At a high level, that total reserve, your operating reserve ratio, you've been operating at 10%. My guess is it should be much higher than that, just from a prudent standpoint. I mean, what should we be operating at on our balance sheet from a standpoint of that ratio?
For your reserve account?
Yes.
Okay, so your reserve account, typically, if you were to be considered what we call fully funded, there's only one district that I'm aware of in the state of Florida that you consider fully funded when it comes to your reserves. But if for a community this size, the assets that you own and the age of the community, you should have in your reserves 1.5 times your budget, your operating budget. Okay.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, we're 140%.
So
And they've always known this, right? But again, it's what do you want to contribute at a year? And there is no right or wrong answer. It's basically what your tolerance level is to put that in. But if you're looking at ratio, just pure data, then that's what it would be, about 1.5 times your annual operating budget.
where do we fall in terms of other CCDs relative to that as a benchmark? Are we in the bottom 10%, top 80%? What's the reality?
You're in the top 80%. I will tell you, this is my 16th year doing this. I have some districts that contribute 0 to their reserves. And what they do is they keep their budget extremely lean, and then whatever they come in under budget every year, they throw that into reserves. Sometimes they'll contribute 12 grand. Sometimes it's nothing. I have some that consistently put in $350,000. So it's all over the board. I would say y'all are probably in the top, because you have already 2 million, 2.8, whatever that number is, in reserves. And we have contributed. I think we did 350 one year. We did another 300. So you have contributed money. But the problem is, for years, we were using reserves to fund the increases in the budget. So that depleted stuff over the years. So kind of where it's at.
The other
Just to
part,
keep it at zero.
we also have a reserve study, which is even worse if you actually look at that.
Yeah, but the
Yes.
reserve study isn't accurate.
It's not good. It's just a starting
It's not a
conversation.
good.
It's not.
Woefully underfunded is the.
The reserve study's got
Short, the reserve study, you can't call it inaccurate.
It's got valid
It has-
points.
It reflects reality and what it is. It's just some
For
assumptions
some-
some might disagree.
For some things, but the light poles, that's the thing, when you pay for something, you're looking for something complete.
Right.
It wasn't complete, but no, I do agree.
Board
At least we have an
And
idea.
then we don't have the number. What's the general feel? If they're red zone type issues.
Just what we normally pay pretty much every year.
So there's no red, orange.
15
Using the same analogy.
I think that's an unknown. I think when he did the substructures, he found some deteriorating. That's probably gonna need to be addressed fairly soon.
Okay, so we did find some red
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
Do we know, is this $1 million?
I have
Is this,
no idea. I asked him that today and he's like,
he doesn't wanna,
he does help.
Well, and for me, is the difference between if there's some posts that need to be replaced and you need to replace a boardwalk.
well.
That's
that's a
Are you
doing a
different-
section or
Different
you doing a
conversation.
Right, that's a whole,
Well,
that's
That's what I'm
a,
saying. I don't know what the answer.
So this is a 6-figure or an 8-figure problem.
Okay, could,
Right.
could go either way. Um,
Could be less.
So
I would like to throw in one and I'm gonna drive the number higher, but I'm gonna put it on the table. We have talked for 2 years, 3 years about doing security cameras. We had a meeting specifically on that. We got some swags. I would like to see at least $100,000 in the budget for security. Well, depending on what you want to do, we started getting lows and highs. I mean, as high, I want to say it was high as,
you know,
4 million.
it's a great thought, but it's a luxury item. And right now we're dealing with necessities.
Jack, we're always gonna be dealing with necessities.
I know,
If they
but-
fund it this way, we're always gonna be doing it.
I mean-
And I'm gonna say it again, that's why you look
Right,
at a
right
bond.
now, you're looking at like well over 50% increase.
That's why you look at a bond in the amortized over 30 years.
I
Keep
disagree.
saying that loud.
I disagree.
Let me bring up a happy question. Which is, we've done employee recognition, and I think every time we do that, we find out there's no budget for it. Did we ever fix that?
probably not. We
Oh,
probably
it
should
comes
have-
out of miscellaneous contingency.
You know, party time, recognition,
You got a goodwill line item.
good, yeah, something like that. The happy fun category.
You can donate for check.
Well, we even talked about that for the chairman when you
I
do
already
hurricane,
donated
come in
mine.
and do lunch for the staff, things.
Yeah.
I put in $1,000 for that.
So we have that covered?
Yeah, it's miscellaneous 15,000.
Right now, it would come out of miscellaneous contingency, and I think there's plenty of money there for that.
That's all I care about. Go back to sleep.
Now that we got the $500, so let's go back to the 50 million.
But you know, once they do that,
50 million.
you see that number on the sidewalks,
Look at a different
Can we-
budget.
no less than a
To
quarter
keep
million.
this, to keep this moving, can we start, go up to pond, Brenda? No, up to there you go. Is there a number? Do y'all want to contribute and or y'all want to do anything for ponds? Do you want to take it out of reserves? Like, what do you want to do with this particular thing? Or we can put it back to 100,000.
I go back to the rules of engagement. Is there a particular ratio that reserve has to be that we all agree that we can't go below a hard deck? What is the answer? Because if there's no rule, we're gonna sit here and go in circles.
Well, there's no hard rule. It's
I know, but what
what
is
we
the
choose.
rule that
What
we're
do we
gonna
want to choose?
choose to be proper stewards?
What your comfort level is.
I understand that.
There's no
What's
hard
the-
Put a number on the table. Put it
Well,
on the
how
table.
much does it cost for sidewalks, boardwalks, ponds, new equipment?
Well, we gotta tack down one variable here, guys, because we're trying to tackle, he's
You're
tackling,
asking for a number.
he's tackling the reserve, but then
That's-
you're also tackling, okay, what are we trying to fix? That's not even a reserve number,
But
that's.
again,
But-
if there is a hard deck on that reserve number and we know if that's what it is, then we have to put that 500,000 in just to achieve a very baseline of existence. And then we can tackle the rest of the stuff. It's just.
But that's
what is
it's undefined.
that's the problem.
So define it. I think is the point, is what's the number we wanna put?
In reserves.
Angel has recommended 150% of our annual budget. Our annual budget right now is running about 5 and change.
Mhm.
So based on what she just said.
I understand what you said.
Yeah.
We're a little ways away from that.
No, but I'm trying to put a number on the table. That's a $7.5 million number, of which right now we're at 2.7.
Correct.
So we got a $5 million shortage of reserves based on what Angel recommended.
Correct.
So that's your starting point.
And you're not gonna get it overnight. Angel, do we know, anything on, when we look at these, like the sidewalk, for example? This includes all of Central Village and the finish off North Village, correct?
That
No
is
other
correct.
villages? No
Yep.
other villages? Okay. And I know Central Village is a problem because most of our lawsuits come from Central Village.
Correct.
The biggest trees are in Central Village. The windiest roads are in Central Village. I mean, once you get through Central Village, it's not as bad.
And there's a little bit of an unknown factor, and I found this out this week, because it's been almost a year since I did North Village. So when I went back and looked at some of the stuff that I did last year, like one of the houses, there was 2 or 3 panels that are now, roots have pushed them up, which I didn't have in my initial inventory.
Right.
So I think there's probably about a 10% margin in there.
Well, and the problem is, this is best estimate, because you go in there and it could be that you might not be able to finish Central Village. I don't know. I mean, I'm just,
So
when you go in. for
another
something.
way to ask the question, you guys have been here a while and I haven't. Another way to attack it is just what is the appetite? If this is an austerity budget, which I think it is, and even at 50% increase, what's that hard deck of what everybody's willing to increase it by before we go to the bond conversation of an alternative way to fund? What's the number?
Traditionally, we have stayed around 15. I don't think we've gone, the highest was 18%, Jack, the first year we did it.
No, I think we went 16.9.
What's the appetite?
We've stayed in the mid-teens, historically been.
That's a problem, because it's not gonna work.
Yeah, you're getting to that point. And, you know, I think there's 2 other parts of this. One other thing, which might not be now, but is in the future, is that we've talked about with the growth of Island Village to have an annex, a maintenance location down there as well. We have an existing property that we may or may not be able to utilize, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that still something, it's a near-term need as that grows down there? Are you gonna need another?
You're adding costs, just.
We don't have
I got it. I'm starting off with the bitter pill, and then I'm gonna
Yeah,
go something different.
All right, this is.
So where's that rest? I'm sorry.
We don't have to have one, but it sure would be nice to have.
It'd be very convenient if you had a satellite facility down there.
Because it's a long drive.
But we'll make do if we don't have property.
All right, now, on the other side, I've got some notes here, something like is there grants available and other reimbursements? One of them, I had like FIA sidewalks or something for that could be a grant. Does that ring a bell for anybody?
Yes, so what happens with Aegis, they have a sidewalk grant program and it's based on how big your community is, what you spend. So right now, I mean, what you've spent this year, we're gonna get $10,000 back from them.
Is that reflected in the budget net?
Not gonna get us there.
No.
But that's the small one.
It's
But-
a few zeros.
But here's the
No.
other part, which is that we've been approached by FDOT, correct? For eminent domain and
Oh, that's
compensation for
it.
that.
We just talked about that last meeting. That went away.
Yeah.
That's not on the table anymore.
That's not true. We also heard.
I
that
thought
they
we
came
said
back-
it was possibly coming back in the next, because this was just a quick expansion.
Yeah, but we don't have
I'm
anything.
not
confirmed, though.
banking on that for at least 2 years.
No, we don't have anything confirmed.
What's the additional enterprise number? Do we get?
That was my next question.
That's my next, because I was thinking
That is a big number.
so do we factor that in the equation?
Well, the enterprise number needs to be.
I don't see it here.
So Angel, you wanna take that?
It's more revenue, either generate more revenue or less the.
You can't factor, I mean, you can factor that in, but all that's gonna do is go into your reserves because that has to be used for specific items.
But Angel, when
So-
we're talking about that ratio, and if you were to tell me that 500,000 that we're gonna put in reserves, we're gonna get it from ECD, well, then that's taking 500 out of the budget.
Yep, you can absolutely do that. And I won't have any definitive answer for you until your May meeting about what the number is and all of that.
Given where we're at in the budget cycle, I would only recommend we take that number and shoot that straight to our reserves. We know we got a $5 million gap. Whether we do 0 or whether we do 500,000, like, still gonna be gapped by years of reserve contributions.
Totally agree. The reserve is way inefficient.
I mean, so the camera one I would throw out there, the other one I would throw out there is where do we have it? This year should be coming the next round of alleyway replacements. Cause Artisan was last fiscal year and we're on every other year cycle. So there's 225 for Artisan, 230.
What's left?
Well, we're starting back up in Central Village. Central Village. Whatever you guys determined the cycle was, we're doing.
Is
every
that
other
this
year.
coming year or the year after?
No, it's this coming year. We did Artisan fiscal 24.
That's not budgeted at all, Angel?
We've got a reserves line for ways.
It's just minor repairs.
Or is it resurfacing? You're talking resurfacing.
Yeah.
Just like we did ours.
Right.
We had agreed that it was gonna be every other year we do a village. And that puts it on a 15 to 20 year cycle with the number of villages we're gonna have with Island Village. Which is,
Well, it wasn't every year we do a village. It was based on the schedule.
I think we're done.
We have a schedule for that. I'll look that up.
Artisan was the last one that had never been.
Understood, but we don't do it every year.
No, it's every other.
But you're saying we're due for like a third cycle now to go back?
No, this is the second, there was the original build.
Yeah,
Everybody has now had one refresh off the original build.
yes.
Now we're going back and doing the second refresh. Artisan just got its first repaving ever.
Yes, I understand. And that's why I thought we were done and we were waiting for the magic day to come where we look and say, okay, now we need to start another cycle. In other words, I thought we were done.
So,
We had worked into our budget back in 24. When we did Artisan was every other year. And that would put us on a 15 to 20 year cycle maintenance, which is about where we're
so
at.
the next, it's not every other year. It takes 4 years in between, it's a 4-year window for each village. So you said Artisan was the last one?
Artisan was in 2024.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have the schedule. And so the next one is there's North Village 2025 to 2030. West is 2025 to 2030.
What are you looking at?
It's on the CCD website. We have the alley schedule, the repaving. It's updated January 9, 2025.
Central's not on the top.
What was it?
Central Village isn't on the top. That was the first one.
It says downtown, 2023 to 2027.
So
So that really is the next one.
what
We're
you're,
halfway through.
so what you're looking at was not part of the conversation we had 2 years ago. And I'm glad that there's a document out there. saying that.
There's always been one out there.
Okay, that was not introduced into the conversation when we had the budgeting.
Okay.
What I'm saying is the conclusion that we came to based on staff's recommendation was on a 15 to 20 year cycle with 7 villages, now add another 4 with Island Village.
Right.
That gets you about a 20 year cycle for the entire town.
Just for grins, forget about the conversation. What is the need of happening in the fiscal year 2026? What's the need? What do you think?
Central's getting close.
Getting close.
Can it wait another year? Cause it's another $250,000.
It probably can.
Is there not a line item?
Suddenly-
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of.
Okay, so then it's kind of what I was saying. We go through a cycle and then we wait to figure out when we need to start the next cycle.
I would have liked to stay on that.
And say, this is the conversations every board and we keep kicking cans down the road because there's something else that breaks.
I'm just saying.
I know you're 250 at the top of.
I know, and I don't want to do unneeded repairs. Oh, well, it's time to do this. So
According to this, it's South Village is next, 2026, the next, well, it's the range, 2026, 20.
well, that's assuming the other 4 have been done.
Right, no, they haven't.
They have.
It's downtown.
Yeah, so you're right. It starts with downtown.
And then northwest Lake Evan.
Because that was the first one that was done in 2007. So we are,
So now we're up to 65% increase. We'll go back again. What is the appetite of this board to raise it 65%? Because if not.
No, I'm not, no one's gonna raise it to 65%. No one's gonna raise it to 50%.
okay, so I know
I don't
Where
know
is this
that
at?
you can answer for everybody because.
so the question is, do you not do it or you find an alternate funding method?
Exactly, that's the point. So.
Well, you're, one way or another, you're still raising fees on everybody, whether you do it 50%.
Well, it's just lessening the.
But to your,
Well, not necessarily. You're actually almost doubling the cost of whatever you're actually spending is what you're doing.
but you're amortizing it over 4 years.
Yeah,
You're-
I know, but
To your point of people who have, the town right now, over the past 3 years,
Right.
all of us sitting here have borne the sins of the past 25 years where boards didn't increase.
I understand that, but it can't all be, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Shel. I get it. But it, you know, it might apply in business, but you can't do it to residents to go ahead and say, hey, we gotta catch up in 1 or 2 years for the sins of the past. It's just not gonna-
That's why we're saying a bond.
Over 30
And
That's why I'm
I
amortizing.
don't think that's the solution because if I don't have the solution, but the problem
I
is,
don't think you use a bond for operating costs for maintenance.
and the other thing too is, you
Repairs?
take $10 million.
They've already said.
And
we
we
can
end
repair
up spending over $18 million on
We,
this.
she said we can't use it on
That
site.
just doesn't seem to be.
Back in the meeting, said we could use it as.
Yeah, I think that was very debatable. I think we can use a bond.
On sidewalks.
I think
Jan,
we can too.
Jan's on one.
Angel, what did Jan say about sidewalks?
Oh, she wrote a note. And that was. that was
Yeah,
not-
basically, you can't, your sidewalks, so you can bond new construction sidewalks. What you're doing is maintenance of the sidewalks because the trees aren't ever gonna go away. So regardless, it's considered maintenance. However, with that, me saying that, I think Jan wanted to check with bond counsel to get a definitive answer, which we've never been successful getting something like that bonded, but I'm not a bond counsel, so.
And Jack, to your point, so I would like to have bond counsel in the next meeting, because to your point, there's been ambiguity between sidewalks or boardwalks or alleyways or whatever else we're gonna talk about. Listen, if I'm wrong and we can't bond it,
Then we
then
can.
let somebody say that definitively from bond counsel, so I'll stop asking the question and we'll move on and we'll figure something else out.
So the other thing here.
Cause it's just an option.
Because my problem is, I think to Shell's point, we don't have an alternate plan. There's nothing in reality. On a bond, I know that two things. One, I can amortize it on 30 years. There's a cost of doing that, absolutely.
It is
number
a
two-
tremendous cost. It is a tremendous.
It is not defined tremendous.
Let's put a, did you look at her analysis there?
Yes.
For a $5 million bond, it's gonna cost you over 30 years, $7 million in interest.
That's not the cost of the bond. That's the interest. That's that.
Well, it's not to get paid.
You still gotta pay it
You
back.
still have to pay it.
The other issue is you're gonna bond, you get a 30-year bond on something that only lasts for 15 or 20 years. I don't think it's a good idea. Your sidewalks you're replacing right now are 20-year replacements.
We are open to a better solution.
I don't have a good solution because I don't think a bond's is the thing to use.
It's the.
So somebody show me the plan of not doing a bond thing of how we address, and I'm not saying it all in 1 year, I'm not even saying it in 3 years. I have not heard anybody present a plan to say for all the stuff we've thrown out in the past hour and a half. Somebody put out a plan and say rough sketch what it looks like. I'll pick a number, I'll say 10
We
years.
double the, we double the.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna go back to the budget. Angel deleted 4 items in yellow to get us down to 0% increase. Those 4 items, including one of them, was reserve contribution, which we're talking about now. So I see those as your priorities, and you set a priority 2 years ago about sidewalks. So what I'm looking at is filling in those 4 blanks with some number that'll give you a percentage that you can live with.
We do this every year.
Yeah, we do.
So
This is what everyone
And
agrees.
and when
The problem is we're consistently behind the 8 ball and it's not enough.
And honestly, I think we're getting further in the hole.
last year you had no reserve
Right.
contribution. You can throw in a little bit this year and still be within your percentage increase. Start plugging in some numbers in those 4 categories that you can live with.
I think doing 15 or so % every year is doing a disservice to the current residents because it's front loading a lot of the things that are the sins of the past.
And we're fixing the sins of the future.
Right.
Well,
Because eventually it stops and in fact will go down.
Because the
Once we're
problem
done, once we're done fixing everything.
well, what happens when the 5 of us are no longer on this board and the next board comes in here and goes back to the mentality of the past 25 years and says, you know what? Just let it break. On a bond, to my second point, is not only you're amortizing and there's a cost for amortization, but what it also does, it's the one thing this board can do to commit to fixing those things. Because the 5 of us sitting here, we are not gonna fix all the things we just mentioned in the terms that we're gonna be on this board. If these are things we know we need to fix, this is the only path to commit this organization to it.
Don't want to say the only path, but a path.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm hearing it's the only one. Somebody tell me an alternate, I'd love to hear.
You've said that 3 times. You have. So how you go ahead and do, I'm sure you'll say it a 4th time. If you look at it, how we've always done it is gone ahead and look at how much we want to go ahead and take on. Right? Do we want to take 1.1 billion? Do we want to take on 800,000? Do we want to take on 700,000? when you look at the pond slopes, do you want to go ahead and do all of red and orange, or we're gonna do a portion of red, just like other communities, and go ahead and tackle it one day at a time? I just go back to it, we didn't get here overnight, okay, and it takes a while to go ahead and get back. You know, and if we need to go higher on the percentages, fine. I just don't think that the community will accept anything to do with the bond after the plan bond issue. I don't think they're gonna go ahead and accept that. And we'd have to go ahead and.
You don't think we're comparing apples to oranges? That was for building new things.
Okay, so
This.
you need to take yourself out of the CCD director role, and you need to go into somebody who actually lives here. Cause I know you do, but what I'm saying, take it out of our little world, and you're just out there and you come in and you hear bond. That's all you got, all you gotta say, and it's been said way too many times.
We
in-
passed the bond last meeting.
I understand that. That's different. That was an infrastructure for our village. It's not related to,
Infrastructure for the rest of the
it's-
town to maintain what we have.
you're not gonna be able to sell it. I guarantee you, you cannot sell it. Because we've used that word so many times in our meetings, when we talked about everything, people are done with it. Okay? And I'm just telling you.
I'm gonna say it out loud, and it's gonna be a very unpopular comment. I can't govern based on the misperception of some of the people in the town based on what a bond can be. And listen,
When
if
they're
they-
here, you can tell them that.
that's fine. And if they want to come and say that, they can say that, and I'll say that back to them. If they didn't like the idea of us using a bond for new assets, I get that. That's a conversation. But the community has unilaterally and consistently said, pardon my French, fix the shit you've got.
Mhm.
And we're doing the best thing we can.
Until they get to the details of how much
And that's
it's actually going to cost them. Right? Twice as much.
Well, we have found two roads to do this, which is, do you want your CDD O&M costs to go up 15% per year, every year for the foreseeable future?
Cause that's.
Or do you want, cause that's one way to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Or do you want to separate it out, keep your O&M fees the same and have a separate payment? Which sunsets after 20, 25 years, 30 years, whatever we deem appropriate,
But also commits the organization to getting it done.
and it gets done. You're gonna be paying the same, in fact, if you BOND it,
Mhm.
you don't like me to say it out loud.
Oh, it's not
actually-
me. It's the room full of people.
It-
I'm probably sitting over here with Jen.
If this was a job for popularity.
Yeah, I just.
But it's less expensive over the
It's
course.
not a
of-
job, it's not a, I take great offense to that. I really do.
Tom, I do
really-
respect
I
because
really-
we-
it's not a,
That.
it's not a popularity thing, okay? I mean, we have human beings that actually live in this
But
community.
your comment
Okay.
was it'd be a very unpopular conversation. I'm not.
All right,
worried
you want me to
about
reword it? I really think that you are asking people a lot to take on for 20, 30 years. You're not asking for like, okay, it's gonna be 15%, for the next 5 or 10 years. They're asking to do it for 30
And
years.
you know, what my comments gonna
Okay.
be is at the end of 30 years, you know where we got to is the residents where we're at right now.
Right, we're
Looking
gonna,
back and saying, why did the people for the past 25 get a free pass?
but the other thing is that for some of this stuff, which I think we're gonna go ahead and see. For in like year 15 or whatever, oh my gosh, look, the slopes are going. We have more sidewalks that need to fix. We gotta rebond. We need to bond another one. We'll have 2 bonds at the same time. I mean, even you said you went over the areas in Central Village and there's some stuff that's popped. I'm just saying, what's enough? Now, I mean, that's just my opinion.
And if you believe that's the case, which I agree with you, that's the case, whatever we bond, whatever magical thing we put in the box, there's gonna be more stuff that pops out of the box. To Dave's point, now instead of 15% per year, now to do the comparable, now instead of 15, now we're rebaselining it to 25? Because those things are gonna break, whether we bond them or not.
It's just an unsustainable model that we have currently, period. Again, if we looked at a balanced scorecard, like you'd look at any healthy individual or business, you'd look at all these ratios. And it would tell you that we're on an unhealthy path, end of story. There is no objective. The problem is this board or prior boards doesn't seem to have those 7 points of ratios. And if you don't have an understanding of what it means to be successful, then we're, pardon my French, pissing in the wind. Because it is, there's no baseline to have a conversation. So it's very difficult.
And I would disagree to the point. I think largely, we're all in agreement. I think plus or minus as to what we think should or shouldn't be fixed. Do we fix orange? Do we fix red? For the most part, I don't hear much disagreement among the board here as to what should be fixed. The question is how we should finance
And also how much should be fixed at what
it.
time?
Over what time? Absolutely. But the question of, to his point, what should be in the bucket? What are the standards and expectations? Is only two things. Either one, we define it because we get to define it, or number two, between him and the lawyer, they tell us, you gotta fix this stuff. Those are the two ways they get defined.
I'm gonna take a little bit of the mystery out of it. One quick question, Brenda or Angel, from the
Yeah.
spreadsheet, how many units are assessed by the CDD total? I don't care about how big they are, just total number of units.
That's
One-
in the,
1,380,656.
Number of units.
Number of units.
That's
How
the
many?
total. Oh, you don't want square feet?
No, just the unit.
Um,
That's gonna be,
Wow, per square foot meters.
how many homes?
About 6,000.
Well, hold on, because this includes the
Residents.
rooms at the inn.
It actually has to.
Just the residential piece.
4475, I believe, is close.
no, that's fraud.
No,
No,
it's,
you can't just do Chrome. It's there's multifamily.
Yeah.
I mean, we,
Townhouse,
Right, but-
multifamily.
there's commercial, there's,
Oh, what-
not the commercial and not.
but that's what it ranks on. That's what we charge.
Dave's worried about who's gonna show up at the meeting.
Right.
It's- yeah, it's based on square feet.
Oh,
No. We don't have. the number
So
of
if,
units.
if I count all the single family,
Hotels, you got hospitals, you got all this stuff.
well, an apartment, I guess it's apartments and homes. what you would-
Talking at once, nobody can hear anything.
Sorry, go ahead.
if I take out the churches and Croa, but it includes the rooms at the inn and the multifamily and the hotel, we're at 7608.
7608. All right, if you do a bond and 7608 units pay $100 a year for 30 years, guess how much that gives us? $100 a year per unit. And that's not even counting all the non-residential stuff. Guess how much money we get?
20 million.
No, that's what it says.
9.2 million.
Except we do it by square foot. We don't do it by.
That's what it's units.
Right, we're just swagging right now. Let's get it.
All right, so this
So
whole.
that includes, all the debt, the fees.
All the fees.
The,
Right, that includes $760,000 of fees, $600,000 of interest reserve, and $421,000 of interest cost.
By the way, it's my ignorance, but just like we have a progressive tax scale, and I've got an estate home.
Yes.
I don't mind paying
Right.
a different rate. Can we not change the rate structure to not hit the least of the homeowner?
No,
There's,
you'd have to change the methodology, which is, there's a cost to that.
And we'd have to have a public hearing to change that methodology.
Yep.
you
You wouldn't
could.
be able to do it
Just
for this
looking
fiscal
at
year.
options.
Who's looking at options?
So, again, just for the residential, that's not factoring the non-residential. If everybody ponies up $100 a year
For the next 30 years.
for the next 30 years, you get $9.2 million. Why is that so?
Untenable.
Who's gonna argue
Is
against
that
that?
what it is? What does it get you? What does it get you? You trying to say, let's do a bond right now for 30 years? Is that what I'm trying to say. No, I want to know, what does it get you? Because we're going to be doing an increase as it is, it's probably about $150 to $170 per unit.
Well, not if we're taking some of the items that are based in that
I'm
increase,
with that.
putting them into a bond.
Right.
We took out the capital stuff.
So and
Andrew just said it went to a 0%.
So if everyone gave $100, you get 9 million, but you actually end up paying close to 18 million at the end of the bond.
I thought you just said that included the interest.
It can't. If it's $9 million spread out over
I'm asking
years.
The par on the bond is $11 million. When you subtract all of the costs of the bond, which are the fees associated, one-time fees, you get. You net a bottom line check day one, whenever it's.
Oh, no, I understand that.
$9.2 million.
Okay, but that's not my question. I understand what you get. Like I get my house But when I finish the mortgage, I don't just pay when I bought it, I pay the
You
interest.
pay $100 a year for 30 years.
No.
But as a whole.
He's
for-
saying
for
we're still paying
nine-
11, we're losing $11 million.
Well, it could be 9 million or whatever. It's another, it's almost double.
And I'm gonna go with the converse of that. If we do it in increases, I did the math when we did the first increase here over 28 years, from 1994 to 2022, it was 103% increase. So we can either bond it now and pay the interest, or 20 years from now, if the board actually 20 years from now commits to this, guess what? We're gonna pay that money anyway in inflation costs, as opposed to
No,
us
I,
doing the project now.
and that's, I'm not arguing that. I guess my point is that when we're talking numbers, let's talk real numbers.
Mhm.
Let's don't make the numbers that make it look good.
No,
Right,
all
let's say-
all he's saying is if we do $100, yes, there would be interest on top.
Right.
We will net $9 million that we can then turn and take $9 million towards projects.
The other thing to consider is calling the slow road. Your risk exponentially increases because you're really not able to address things that are known.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden, somebody dies in the pond, God forbid. Your risk profile increases quite a bit, and there is a cost to that. There is an unintended cost to that. Quality of the community, overall vibe. I mean, let's face it, over 3 years ago, I drive around looking around going, this place is a dump, right? And for what we should have. So I don't know, you gotta weigh all those factors.
Yeah, now-
Nobody wants to think about
To-
that, but.
But Jack and Tom are absolutely right. You're gonna have 5.5% interest that is going out the door.
Understood.
All right, that's out of our community. It's going to where the bondholders are. Unless you buy a bond.
But my counter to that is I'm gonna have, and I don't know if it's actually 5.5%. If I go the alternative route and do the increases, I'm still gonna have 5.5% inflation or 4% or 3%. There's gonna be a comparable offset to that number. If I go the alternate route, just for 10 years from now, when I try to repair sidewalks.
Costs in a 3-year period by 200%. You're not thinking about that stuff too, so preventing that maintenance and kicking the can down the road could be twice as much. And that has to be in the mix.
I don't know what that number is, but there's a number.
Well, there's a number and,
Yeah.
and late it has been an extreme number. So, and yes, maybe it'll level out, I don't know, but we know it ain't gonna get cheaper. So it's, just looking at the cost of living index and the construction index cost, it's gonna go up. So that's part of the equation. It's not a simple
We're
equation.
locking in today's cost, because
Correct, which is a huge benefit, which may offset the 5% cost to begin with, just by escalations. So we're in an escalating environment, so
the only
that's
reason
why we gotta look at the whole picture.
because what we did right now systematically, which we do every year, and it's absolutely correct. We go through and we look, all right, what is this crap we gotta fix? All
What we
right,
have to fix, what do we want to fix, what would be nice to add. And we very rarely get into anything about adding, and we usually don't even get into the want to fix.
and so
We have
listen,
the traditional get in the have to fix.
we can do that with a 15% increase, we swallowed that pill hard the past few years. We tried to do it again, but now it's not 15%. So, I mean, if there's a plan C, let me know. Can we mint crypto or something? Angel?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
She's looking at it right now.
Well, there are other options if you are looking at options, you're not gonna solve it tonight, but yeah, there's bonds, there's lines of credit, there's private loans, there's different mechanisms to do different things. Not that you'd want to do them, but that's,
Those are more
there's
expensive.
Are those other ones more cost efficient than a bond?
First
I'd
off,
have
let's
to-
establish whether we can do a bond. Okay?
And that's what I'm
I don't
saying.
think we can.
I would like to have bond counsel at the next meeting so we can have a conversation.
But it's very limited as what you can use it for.
I'd like to hear bond counsel tell us what.
Absolutely. And Angel, when is our drop dead date? When do we have to have a budget approved?
at your May meeting.
Maybe.
Unless,
be-
unless we schedule a special meeting prior to June 14th. Because we've got to have this budget in by June 14th. That's why we always do it at your May meeting, because your June meeting is after the deadline. So we would
should
have
schedule
to either do it at May or schedule a special meeting at the beginning of June.
Doing it in May, and if we want to do another meeting, we can choose to do it then.
Or we should do that meeting and we need it, and then we're like, we don't need it, we just cancel it. As long as we all agree on when we.
I think it's important to understand what we can do with the bond, because this is all right. I don't know the answer.
Because we've gotten, to Jack's point, we've gotten somewhat muddled responses as to, you can do this on sidewalks, but not that. I would like to hear a definitive yes or no.
Well, until we
You
get
can
the
do a
next.
special, you can do a special meeting on June 10th. Is everybody available on that day?
Well, that's my birthday, but. You know.
Oh, then we're absolutely doing it.
Oh, it's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. I'm saying. They can't meet.
Angel, I don't, you know,
How many Tuesdays?
prior to that, can you talk to Jan and get a definitive answer
No,
on what we can
it's
use?
bond
bonds
council.
for?
Bond council.
It's not Jan, it's bond council.
I
Oh,
can have bond
absolutely.
council-
Okay.
I can have bond council attend a meeting, whether it's your May or if you want to do a special meeting, but they can attend at the May meeting if you guys have, they can just run through what your options are and what that looks like.
I mean, the alternative, and I don't like this, but the alternative is we do another workshop before the May meeting to have this conversation.
I know, because we're eating
willing.
3 weeks.
I'm willing to as well.
I am.
You don't know if we can get it done.
I'm just talking about having a workshop just for the bond.
I don't know if you can do it. You need 2 weeks' notice.
Yep, yes, you do.
So I don't think you can get the meeting done.
It's again, 3 weeks until our next meeting.
Yeah, you can't have another meeting in between now and your May meeting. There's not enough time to advertise for that.
All right, so then you're talking
I
about.
see your eyes, Dave, but it's true. I promise.
You can see his beady eyes from the camera. I've realized that.
Yes, I
For this-
can.
This is where I flip flop and say, is that true for a workshop also?
Yes, all meetings have to be advertised.
And it takes that long to get an ad to the newspaper, to poll the board, to make sure everybody can come. It takes us a bit of time. So yeah, it takes longer than 5 days because it has to be advertised at least 7 days ahead.
So May it is.
So what date then?
We already have in the schedule.
Great, but that still doesn't preclude us from asking bond council now our questions and getting an email response.
I mean, I'm gonna put it this way, we know what the question is.
Yeah.
Can,
Not at
can
all.
bond council please elaborate? Out of Angel, you can give them the list of everything we've talked about, sidewalks, boardwalks, ponds, everything. And just have bond council come back in an email and blast it back to us in an email.
Put a Jack statue on there too. See,
Jack statue's at the top. Always has been.
Bigger statue.
I mean, I still want them at the meeting, but to.
Okay, if you get one, then big.
Keep the
That one's gonna be a little.
that way we're not spending.
Yes, sir, out there in the audience.
Well, until you get the bond council's answer, would it help you to visualize if you type in one line item at a time to see what percentage increase you get? For instance, put in the 1.1 million for sidewalks.
Then we're prioritizing. We do this every year too.
Well, you haven't done it yet. I just started asking.
I mean, the reality is, guys,
Well,
we're not gonna have a bond done by the time of the budget. Nobody's disillusioned there.
Right, so-
I would, well, no, here's where I would go is, I would like to know by the time we're signing a final budget, if this board is committed to doing a bond or not. Understanding that's gonna happen sometime in 26 if we choose to do it.
We're not gonna say that now.
No, by the time they sign the final budget.
we would still have to put in money for sidewalks or whatever to keep that going,
100%.
to do that. If we-
To Gary's point, we're gonna have to prioritize something right now. We're not gonna, for the 26 budget, we're not gonna have the answer as to can't bonds or lines of credit or anything. We're gonna have to triage something.
We're gonna have to do what we've always done, and go ahead and say, okay, this is the 3 things we wanna do, move the money around, get started.
Yep.
And see where that gets us.
And the honest answer is
Let's
whether
hear
we bond or we don't bond, that's still gonna be what we end up doing.
What was that?
I said, that's awesome. Let's hear what those are.
Let's go to the bottom.
Okay, great.
Well, we gotta do sidewalks. I don't-
Take the 500,000 out right away, Angel, and give us a really good number on ECD and we'll all be happy. There's one.
Oh, I have a really good number, Shell. It's just a matter of, I want to be definitive with the answer before I tell you guys, but I mean, I think you're going to be fine with some of your projects, and putting money into your reserves. So, I would say take out that 500,000
Take it
for
out.
today.
Yep, start there.
Yep.
We know we're gonna still have potentially that or more to fund the reserves.
Can I ask Angel just on that question, are there any legal or other procedural hurdles to clear for the determination if Enterprise is gonna do that and it's just a decision for their board? Or are there hurdles that may still kill this?
No,
beyond
we
the
have
board?
to, there is an interlocal agreement that has to be revised between our council and ECD's council.
Okay.
Other than that, which basically will spell out what the funds can be used for. And then that's it. And then their
Okay.
board, it will go before their board for final approval. And then that's it. It's already being discussed. The chairman, Carrie, was part of that conversation. Amenable, all of that, as long as there are stipulations what the funds can be used for.
Okay, so there's no known hurdles to get
Take the
this.
first one version and
Some of those restrictions are tied to the bond.
The reserve contribution.
contributions are $500,000 contract.
Right, so what else you gonna do?
Pond slopes,
Well,
you know,
just take out reserve contribution, you're down to a little over 45% increase.
I mean, I'm gonna go
45.
prioritization of life safety, safety and hazard things. To me, that's sidewalks, that's.
Do you want to
possible.
take out the 138,000 for nutrient abatement of 10 ponds?
Yes,
It's 138,000.
yes.
Actually, I'm
Okay.
gonna take that out regardless.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
I read it and I'm like,
That brings you to 42% increase.
Life safety hazards is where I'm at.
Angel, that
Yeah.
just, I was going through my notes and I had something, I guess Jan brought it up earlier, that there was some potential legislation where we needed a tree contingency. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that's gonna pass.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna pass. I mean, we can,
It didn't pass yet.
No.
Brenda, can you take this budget off the screen for now?
Oh, sure.
If,
Yeah, yeah.
if it falls, we have to replace it and the liability falls on us and so that was a potential legislation.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I don't even know what that number would be, Dave.
So is it not dead? It's got a pulse?
I don't think it does, but let me check with Jan. I've been texting with her, so.
Sounds like a next year problem to me.
Trying to capture all the
No.
possible, yes.
The no-nos.
No,
Look at taking the sidewalks and reducing it down to 700,000. Thinking of that, sitting at.
Yeah, a little clarification from Angel on that. If you left the sidewalk number the same, there's no increase, correct? Doesn't your increase come from the 1.1, not the 585?
Now, the increase for sidewalks is it's basically about 600,000. Based on bill. All right, I'll see what Jan says about the tree contingency. Thank you for bringing that up. It totally went off my radar because I didn't think it was gonna pass. Okay, ponds. Are you wanting to do anything there, or is that something that you do want to take out of reserves if you end up coming to some sort of conclusion that you will just
What's,
take the 700 out of reserves if you do the bare minimum?
you talking about the pond slope piece?
pond slopes.
Yes, yes.
I think
In my mind, that's at the top of the list.
Yeah,
For life
again,
safety, it's.
Yes.
We're taking that out of reserve.
I don't put it at the top of the list because how many people have actually died?
Well, no.
How many does it take?
I'm just saying, I'm looking, all I got's a rearview mirror. That's the
Yeah.
liability. I asked the question.
Don't say that. So take 700 down to 0? Is that what you're saying?
No, no,
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice try.
What if we did 500,000? Did it over 4 years, 4 and 5 years, rather than.
Are you,
Oh, God.
are you talking about
30
pond
years.
slopes?
Yeah.
Well, we can put numbers in here, see what it looks like. We're finding out more information. We gotta have something in here.
Well, let me, now I'm gonna agree to go to the jack position. If our target for tonight, let's call this what it is, our ending point for tonight is gonna be what's a palatable percentage. Cause otherwise, we're not gonna fix any of the other stuff. We're honestly saying, are we willing to do 15 to 20%? What does that look like? Then let's not screw around. Tell me what a 20% increase yields us as far as being able to do capital projects. It gives me X number of dollars. Then I go backwards into the projects based on priority.
This happens every year.
I know it does, but until we have the bond conversation, we don't.
Say 20% and then we whittle this and that. It comes to
Yeah, but what if we have a
15,
long conversation and we can't do bonds? That's what we got.
Well, even if we have the conversation, we can do bonds. we're still not gonna get those done in time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You gotta at least put something in here.
Take it down to 500 and let's keep moving down, just for
Yeah.
discussion point.
Just 500,000 in the ponds, 500,000 in sidewalks.
What was the sidewalk number again?
It was 1.1 originally.
It's now to 500,000, which that gives us 23% increase.
With those three items.
Just, well, taking out those three
Taking
items.
And no reserve contribution.
Yes.
Well,
We're.
there would be
we're
a
Expecting the
reading it.
enterprise.
We're expecting the money in. We just don't, we know it should be more than the 500,000 we took out.
If we're throwing a magical percentage out there, I would say more than 15%,
Yeah.
that's where we normally landed anyway.
Now, if you wanted to take,
Well, but 15, 20, 25, we're.
Every year doing this is
Look,
is a disservice.
I don't
But
disagree.
don't, I mean, don't keep doing it then. I mean, it's,
And until somebody tells me a model of, we're doing it over 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is.
well, what if you take 200,000 out of reserves and throw that into the ponds then? Okay, so,
We're taking our low reserves and bringing them lower.
well, you're using reserves for something though,
Actually, I'm not against it.
okay?
If,
So I just want to make sure I'm on the right page. So you want me to take sidewalk project down to 500,000?
I think we're still spitballing here. I wouldn't change anything quite yet.
Okay.
We're hypothesizing.
I'm just saying, if you take 200,000 in reserves, you did, and that would offset the
Pond slopes.
ponds and the sidewalks. It'd bring you down to about 18.9%. That basically gives you 700,000 for the ponds, 500,000 for the sidewalks and usable money, but we reduce our reserves by 200,000. I don't think you're gonna be able to pull off more than about 18 or 19%.
That's why I said 15.
Well, you did 16.9% last year. You need to do the same this year, probably.
It's not much to cut.
There's very little that we can cut. I mean, there's numbers that we're not sure of, but there's the nickels and dime stuff.
Yeah, it won't make it'll make a 0.02% difference.
So if
and
you take
we've got,
500,000 out of here, if you take 500,000 wherever that may be, that brings it's down to 25.6% increase.
What do you have in there for the ponds, Angel?
I didn't, I zeroed out pond and then I put the 1.1 in sidewalk. So if you disperse that wherever you want, that's fine. But that brings you to a 25.6% increase. Essentially, that would be your budget was 5.672, it brings you to 6.775.
another question along the same lines I asked before. Did we have a change in the number of units this year versus last year? Did we get a plat from Island Village?
Units don't make any difference.
Doesn't make a difference, so we still.
Those were already in there.
No, I thought when we get platted, it changes
When they
from,
applied it, that's when
When
they
they plant
started.
it, you get more money.
Yeah.
Yes,
Was that
so-
factored into the revenue?
so that's the question. Did we not get a plat,
For phase 3.
phase 2?
280.
Yeah,
Is that reflected in
Only
revenue?
piece plotted, yeah, they will be base plotted, but not to be
so
It's already,
2 but they're on the verge of platting,
close, yeah.
which would affect our numbers for this.
They will plat sometime in 26.
Right, so I think we're missing some revenue here, which is the platted lots in Island Village.
50, is it 200? What's the?
So I know exactly what's on the plat.
Plats are
Like,
roughly.
I guess 150 phase 2
Units?
They base the taxes on
It's a decent size.
an unknown number.
Yeah, you can. That'd be risky.
We know it's coming.
We know, but
We don't know exactly what the number is.
we've known Island Village has been coming for 5 years.
So listen, to your point, it's, not over till the fat lady sings, so we haven't gotten that recorded plat yet.
Well, and I think to
Right.
Jack's point, if we're pulling out a reserve to do one of these projects, then you just take the platting and you're shoving it back into reserve, which we know is just a gaping hole.
What was it?
Island Village is already paying for their total number of units, whether platted or not. They're not paying per acreage for anything. At least that's my understanding.
So no more money.
Really? How do they do that without a plat? That doesn't sound right.
I thought the plating
Well,
was the trigger point. They shouldn't
Because,
do that.
because they own property, so we've always assessed anyone who owns property.
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
There's a different rate between undeveloped property and a platted lot.
Mm-mm.
That's not for collection
No,
purposes.
I would disagree.
Well, I prefer to know for sure.
Topic for another moment.
We're not gonna solve it right
No.
now.
So,
Well,
But it's a good point.
there's a possible benefit there.
okay. So sidewalks down to 500. You said take,
I didn't change that.
What's
Is that what you want?
What did you say before? You put 1.1 million into the sidewalks and zeroed out the
Hmm.
bonds? I mean, the ponds, and you said just basically distribute that money the way you wanted.
Well, you could take away the vehicle too, right? Don't we have 50 grand in the vehicle?
Yes.
In the vehicle.
That's not gonna materially.
Well, we're talking 100,000 here, 50 there.
Well.
we're talking 500,000 here, the other 5,000 here. I mean,
What I did was basically, I took out the 700,000 in pond restoration. I brought that to zero. I left 1.1 million in there. We can put it wherever you want, but that basically brings you to 25.6% increase.
Angel, let me ask the question this way, a 15% increase, how much money does that give us to play with for capital projects?
In those 4 buckets.
In whatever bucket we want to put out, yeah.
15% increase, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
650,000.
I was close.
That would be my bogey, 650, and where do we spend it?
Well,
And if we want to pull some out of reserves on top of that, we can do that.
No, what you do is go with 800 and then during the process, it gets whittled down to 650.
you can't go,
Remember,
can't go
Once
lower.
we approve this
can't go
in
lower.
May,
You can't go higher.
that's right.
That's the
And-
thing.
You're starting to.
And somebody here's gonna cave.
Won't be me.
Guys might
So-
put 15%, 18%, 20%. We're
Yeah,
starting to
so what is 750 or 800? At 800, what do you get? You're probably at 18.
800?
50,000.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
If I put 800,
15% was 650.
you're talking 18.5.
Great. There you go. There's your budget. Any questions?
Let's talk about council.
Yeah,
It's a
they're,
good start.
they're gonna be doing that.
Right.
Every 1% increase is $43,000 we get. 600, if 15% gets us $650,000.
Yep, 18.5% gives you 800,000.
Every point we go up or down changes $43,000.
Right, the number you had, Angel, that's 800,000, but you didn't take anything out of reserves?
That's no contribution to reserves and nothing coming out of reserves. That's strictly you're assessing for it in your general fund, 800 grand.
I'm willing to acquiesce right now. We're not budgeting for anything in the reserves because what I'm hearing is the enterprise thing is there are procedural things to happen, but it doesn't sound like there's anything that is a high risk that it won't happen.
All right, Angel,
That's our reserve contribution, whatever that number is.
would you explain to me again, the enterprise thing? That money is going straight into reserves or can it be used for projects or?
So the way
Maybe
that
it's
this
private.
money, the way it's going to be, there's going to be an interlocal agreement. Right now it's vague. It's going to delineate exactly what these funds can be used for, which are going to be right now, without it being final on paper, would be sidewalks, street light poles, potentially boardwalks, but probably not, and possibly pond restoration. Because you have to remember, it has to still run. The bond was a utility bond, right? So it's things that are that we can possibly tie to that to keep it in line with the bond.
Okay, is there a limit on the amount of money?
Oh yeah, they're not just gonna give you an open checkbook.
How much? Will they
I-
give us $1 million?
She doesn't want to give
It's
that.
gonna-
Doesn't want to give us the.
It's, it's gonna be over.
That's what they put out of them. Sorry, I can't hear it. Angel,
I
say it
can't
again.
hear, everybody's talking. I can't hear anything.
Say it again, how much?
It's going to be over $1 million. It's
Okay.
going to be over
Good,
$2
sure.
million. It's gonna
Okay.
be over $3 million.
Keep going, Angel. Keep going.
So there is an X amount sitting in the trustee fund. And what's gonna happen is the board, Carrie, I think, what did they just do? $2 million, I think, or 3 that we wanted to
Jack.
keep for generators.
Just over 2 million.
All right, so what I'm saying is, let's run with this right here. We get the extra money. We spend it on all that pond and we're done.
The only thing that's a question mark, Jack,
Sure.
is what exactly is gonna be delineated in that interlocal agreement of what it can be spent on. But again, it's gonna knock out some of your big projects regardless.
Well, that's wonderful.
That's a great.
I think we're done.
You got to save this year.
Well, we're saving next year too.
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna spend all this at once. We're gonna put it in reserves. We're gonna use it for things we need.
You got to retrieve.
Yeah, definitely, we're pretty.
Why don't we say this from the beginning of the meeting?
I thought it was only gonna be 750.
We budget for a candy brand to ECDD.
Well, that's what I'd want you to think is like 500 grand, like I'm going with Shell. We'll give you that 500 to put in reserves.
That's, yeah, that's not.
Wow.
It's not really.
So you don't want it? 3 hours so we could have been home.
It's always about you eating.
Boy, pizza.
Do we want to have another meeting in June to schedule, just in case?
We need to know what this number is, so yes, we need to.
Right, I mean.
I would much rather schedule it now and say we don't need it later.
Right.
Well, wait, are you saying June or at the end of May?
Begin in June. No, we will have a meeting at the end of May.
We already have May.
No, I mean like May 20th. You're talking
May-
about 2 weeks. You're
May
talking about it.
27 is your meeting.
can't
You
do
could
it in
always
June.
continue that meeting if you're not done. Then I don't have to advertise.
They've done that.
Can we continue this meeting next week? I think I just heard a magical answer.
This is a workshop.
I can't continue.
You
a
can only
workshop?
continue.
Yes, you
until-
can, but it won't be considered a meeting.
Yeah, you can't make any
Well-
decision.
But I think to the point of if we had bond counsel coming in next week, what I just heard is we can continue this meeting till next week and have the conversation we want to have.
I don't care if bond council comes in next week or not, because we're not gonna be able to do anything with bonds this year.
Sure, answers a lot of questions.
What? I mean, we still need to know.
Yeah, but nothing that we're gonna be able to use a bond to issue for the budget.
Sure, you can get a bond money 3 to 6
Absolutely.
months.
6 months.
No, 3
No,
to 6
so
months.
one of the things,
And actually,
I
it's
forgot
not
who
free
it was.
because it's already an established CDD.
We would still budget a portion of it. If there was a bond. You see what I'm saying? So work can still continue. Within that overlap.
We're gonna come up with some bogey, somewhere 15 to 20% is my crystal ball. We're gonna, number 2, we're gonna have an enterprise Christmas gift.
$3 million.
And number 3, then we're gonna have a conversation about somewhere in the bond because
All right, but I'm just saying, there's no immediacy that we have to have that bond council. It could be next month or later. We don't have to have it.
I'd rather,
in
I'd
June.
rather know
That's-
as fast as possible.
because
Okay.
that's gonna, for me, that's gonna make decisions on what we do on the budget. Because if the bond council comes back and says, this, all the stuff you wanna do, you can't do, we're having a very different conversation on what we're doing. It's not just this year, it's the out years for what we're gonna.
What they do, they fully fund reserves in. That's what happens.
And I love what
I
this
can't
whole
use a bond to
concept.
fund reserves.
No, I'm talking about the ECDD money, would fully fund reserves in.
Well, not, well, we'll see.
$6 million, I think it would.
How come it took me 3 years to figure out you could continue a meeting?
$100 million. Keep going.
Well, yeah, okay, well, hey, let's reconvene, next Monday. Whatever,
I would vote that we reconvene this meeting.
not Tuesday.
Oh, we can't vote on anything, sorry. I don't vote that we.
You don't make a motion to reconvene, you just say, are you doing
That's
this
what I
one or your next meeting, your May meeting?
We wanted,
I
why
don't
can
know
we
how
get bond
quickly we
counsel?
can get counsel.
How
so-
quickly can you get council into a continued workshop?
Can that be a continued meeting?
I've taken
Continue a
votes to
workshop, yeah.
continue a workshop. Normally we continue meetings, but whatever you want to do. But yeah, that was the question I had. Angel, I don't know how soon you can get an answer out of bond council.
I agree with you, Dave.
is everybody available Monday, the 12th? I can't do the 13th.
I can, I will,
I'm available the 12th.
I am 12th, I can,
yes, I'll make it work.
Yep. Beautiful idea.
5 p.m.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so Brenda, if you can continue this meeting until the 12th at 5 o'clock.
And
Same
Brenda, can-
location.
So fun, thank you.
Brenda, can you delete the meeting on the 13th? It's still
Already
appearing.
did.
No, it's still appearing in the calendar.
Then I'll have to, because they're showing it canceled. I'll have to talk to school now.
Okay.
And now that's contingent on bond council being available.
And I would also, just so we have everybody here, can Jan also at least dial into that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I will, let Dan know as well.
Automatic calendar, it's still showing.
She needs to hear the same.
Yes, exactly.
I want her to be talking.
You go to the website, 100%.
Your hour and a half meetings are into 3 hours.
5 PM workshop with
It's not
bond
a meeting,
council.
it's a workshop.
Hold on.
Why do we ever have to have a workshop again?
Would you just stop?
Jesus. You're offending Tom again.
You know what? Your wife is right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I just want-
Now she
I
owes me
just
20
want to make
bucks.
sure that we're leaving this budget as is for now. I'm leaving 800,000 in sidewalk project. Doesn't mean it's going to stay there, but that's where I'm leaving it. And that leaves your assessments at 18.5% increase until further discussion. Is everybody okay with that? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All
That's
right.
good.
I will send this revised budget out to everyone right now, based on what we changed and what we left. So everybody has the current copy. Is that good with everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Angel, what is the date you'll have an answer from Enterprise? Will it be by the next workshop or the next board meeting?
No, it should be by the next board meeting, the May board meeting. It will definitely not be by the workshop or by Monday, the 12th. Let's see.
What else you got, Mr. Chairman?
I think it's all. Move to adjourn?
Do we continue?
Nope,
or-
you continued.
Oh, move to adjourn to continue.
Move to continue.
Pause.
Well, I eventually have to go home, so,
Yeah.
you know, you guys do what you
No,
want.
you got a pot here.
220, 221, whatever it takes.
So are we officially done? Can I end this meeting, Mr. Chairman? This workshop?
You can
end the Zoom meeting.
You have.
Thank you, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Pause. We are on pause.